Chapter 484, Stage of Yuanying. Zhua Mo shoved a Ling replenishing Dan into his mouth and chewed on it, with a relaxed expression, as though it was popcorn. His hands did not stop, one after the other. The Ling replenishing Dan that were worth 10 pieces of 4th grade Jingshi apiece were repeatedly thrown into his mouth. There had been a huge amount of materials that they had taken from the Tian family, and from that there had been a large amount that had been forged into Ling Dan like the Ling replenishing Dan. Zhua Mo had adequate wealth now and decided to allow everyone to use them to help them increase their cultivation speed. As the boss, Zhua Mo naturally had an unlimited supply. He also found that no matter how much he ate, his body would not feel any discomfort, so he ate them as though they were snacks. Fueled by this feeding frenzy, the Ling power in his body continuously increased. Each Ling replenishing Dan turned into a stream of gentle Ling power once it reached his throat and quickly spread through his organs. Compared to absorbing Ling power from the outside, the Ling power in Ling replenishing Dan was much gentler and purer, so it could greatly decrease the amount of times Zhua Mo needed to process and refine it. Normal Xiuzhe would have the problem of Ling power blockages caused by the impurities, while Zhua Mo did not need to consider this at all. The Great Daimo physique was very powerful and he could tolerate a much greater amount than normal Xiuzhe. There was also a significant portion of the Ling power that would automatically turn into spiritual power or be absorbed into the Mo physique. Even so, the rate Zhua Mo's Ling power increased was astounding. Zhua Mo finally understood how the terrifying cultivation of the large sect disciples had formed. It formed from being fed large amounts of worldly treasures and Ling Dan. He was just a little power in a remote Jia and he could use so many resources to cultivate. The power that those large sect disciples could command was multiple times larger than his. How could a Xiuzhe that cultivated like this not become strong? Oh, these days were already pretty good. Zhua Mo reflected on the world idly as he chewed the Ling replenishing Dan. Ling replenishing Dan were not rare on the island. Due to the bounty of materials, everyone's Dan-making skills had shot up. Even the most difficult Ling Dan could not stand against supply the abundant materials. The few that were the best at Dan-making could make more than 300 in one frightening go. He thought about when he had been forging the Golden Crow Dan at Wukong Mountain. That really sucked. Ague was silent, as usual, next to Zhua Mo. Zhua Mo didn't dare let her to eat anything like the Ling replenishing Dan. Ague's body was not well, and extremely powerful substances like the Ling replenishing Dan was akin to poison to her and could likely cause her body to collapse. The purple energy in Ague's body had grown again. Even Pu Yao and Wei could not understand this strange power, much less Zhua Mo, who was much less experienced. But since he knew that the purple energy was beneficial to Ague, Zhua Mo did not concern himself with it. I heard that there are 3 Yuanying in Su Ling City now. TSK, 3 Yuanying. 3 Yuanying? Really? Is there even 3 Yuanying in Cloud Sea Jia? You're joking. There probably is 3, it is a pretty big Jia. If there isn't even 3, then it is sad. So the rumors about the Sun Shan Hall ruins are real? Probably, even Yuanying Xiuzhe have come, can it be false? We're so close, if we can't even get one benefit, then isn't that a great loss? As he listened, Zhua Mo really could not suppress it. He took off the shoe on his foot and threw it at the people who were discussing the most. He cursed, idiots. You want Jingshi over your life? Be good and follow me, how many good days have we just had? At this time, a serene voice inserted into the conversation. It seems you are all very idle. Let's multiply your cultivation duties for today. Whoosh, everyone's faces became green. Lil, miss. As expected, Gongsun Lil, miss was staring at them from nearby, his eyes flashing with a cold light. This group instantly scattered. These guys are really annoying, Zhua Mo cursed. Each of them has their nose pointed at the sky, they really think they are the best in the world. These people are like this after having a few victories. Gongsun Cha sat down. I will go and have a heart-to-heart with them. Standing at the side, Ma Fan and the others heard the words heart-to-heart, and their faces paled further even though they were already Jin Dan. We need to be careful, Zuemo said in a low voice, so many experts are gathered here, something is definitely going to happen. Gongsun Cha's heart shook. Even though Shixiang seemed laid back, he knew that Zuemo was more perceptive than any of them. This quality had been proved by past events. Gongsun Cha knew his best qualities, and his shortcomings. He was a pretty good battle general, but he was not as farsighted as Shixiang. He nodded. "And I will arrange for a patrol." At this time, a fierce ripple of Ling power came from a distance. Zuomo's expression couldn't help but change. He blurted out, "Yuanying." Before he finished speaking, he flew into the air. At the same time, Wei Sheng and the others appeared next to him. Each person looked in shock in the direction of Suling City. The Ling power ripple had came from Suling City. There was 4-hour trip between Turtle Island and Suling City, the distance was not close. But this powerful and domineering Ling power ripple was so clear as though it was happening right next to them. Even Wei Sheng couldn't help but show shock. How terrifying would the Ling power collision be to produce such a strong Ling power ripple? How terrifying was the Ling power ripple that it could spread to such a distant place? Yuanying. It had to be Yuanying. Even though none of them had ever seen Yuanying before, they were sure. Such a terrifying Ling power collision was not something a Jindan could produce. This was the first time everyone directly felt the enormous strength of a Yuanying Xiuzhe. Gongsun Cha suddenly took out the Sky Ray treasure lens and swiped his hand on the lens. The treasure lens instantly showed the scene at Suling City. When everyone saw what was on the lens, they all inhaled sharply. The members which had been restless just before had ashen faces and the restlessness disappeared without a trace. Suling City, which had been full of holes from the fighting between Jindan in previous days, was like a cake that had been bisected. The half that was near the Cloud Sea had flown away. Everyone was familiar with the streets of Suling City and were even able to mentally construct the streets on the other half. What was eerier was that the entire surface that had been cut was smooth as though it had been cut with a knife and had a glass-like sheen. Xiuzhe skilled in fire spells were able to recognize this was the glassy layer that would form after something was burned by extremely domineering flames. The Cloud Sea had quickly swallowed the half that flew away and disappeared as though nothing had been there before. There were 2 indistinct figures facing off in the sky. Was this Yuanying? This question was in everyone's minds. After the 2 faced each other for a moment, they left. One of them glanced in the direction of Zuemo and the others. Their hearts suddenly jumped. The other was warning them. Fortunately, the other did not show signs of attacking and his figure disappeared from the edge of the lens. When everyone returned to the island, many people had soulless expressions. The blow that had been dealt to them had been too strong just now. The power that the Yuanying had shown was truly terrifying. Suling City was 5 times the area of Turtle Island. In other words, if a Yuanying Xiuzhe was willing, they had the power to erase Turtle Island from the Cloud Sea. Gongsun Cha bit down on his lips, his face slightly pale. "We are not a match." This sentence caused him to feel great humiliation. His face flushed red, his eyes showing great shock and unwillingness. Zuemo knew that with Gongsun Cha's pride, saying this meant they didn't even have 1/10 a chance of victory. He started to understand now. Experts like Yuanying were not something that could be faced using tactics but could only be dealt with on a strategic level. They had the power to destroy and travel through the void. They were not people that could be killed by relying numbers. Zuemo forced a smile. "No problem, we won't enter conflict against Yuanying." Everyone sank into silence. They had been so confident before. Vermilion Bird Camp had won constantly. Even many Jindan had died under their charges. They had once presumed that they had become stronger. There had been people undergoing core formation successively, and their confidence had been unprecedentedly high. At this time, no one had the interest to speak. They finally knew how stupid their confidence was. They were sitting at the bottom of the well. Any one of the 2 Yuanying Xiuzhe in the sky was enough to destroy all of them. Everyone lost the interest to speak. Zhuo Mo's Sea of Consciousness. Wei said, it seems that this experience has been a great blow to him. Pu Yao was unconcerned. A setback isn't a bad thing, just a yuanying. You're right, just a yuanying. Wei nodded. He went back to his job of teaching guard camp. He had found great amusement from this job. Just a yuanying. The news about the battle quickly spread to them. One of the participants was an elder from Su Ling sect named Sheng. The other was the elder of one of the biggest sects in Cloud Sea Jia, Elder Yunhai Sheng. The halving of Su Ling City had been drawn by the zither string of Yunhai Sheng's Cloud Sea Jade Pillar zither. In this battle, other than half of Su Ling City that had been erased, there were more than 20 Jindan that did not manage to flee in time, and were either turned to powder under the zither sound attack or to ash in the fierce flames. This caused many Jindan to leave Su Ling City of their own will after the battle ended. No one dared to go near Su Ling City again. The large formation of Su Ling City was completely destroyed. If they stayed on the island, it would be dangerous if they were attacked by Yao beasts. Yet Su Ling City's surroundings were only so big, and only had so many cloud islands were suited for habitation. There were many Jindan Xiuzha that could not find appropriate places and started to fight. Some Jindan started to form groups and tried to use their numbers to get enough benefits. Quickly, people started to target Turtle Island. While Turtle Island Battalion was famed in Cloud Sea Jia, but Turtle Island was still an upstart in many people's eyes. They only had one victory and it wasn't anything significant. Turtle Island's wealth had long been spoken of. This caused many hearts to sway. Several batches of Xiuzha quickly sneaked near Turtle Island. All Jindan Xiuzha. The mood suddenly turned tense. Chapter 485, Fire Crow attacking the formation. So this is Turtle Island? The large man at the front looked at the roiling clouds, his eyes flashing. A good place as rumors say. Yes, yes. A small-framed Xiuzha with a pinched mouth and round cheeks hurried to agree, Darren is wise. This island does not expose itself, this location is the best next to Su Ling sect. He suddenly lowered his voice. This subordinate used the hemp garment divination method to divine multiple times and, increasingly, I feel that this Turtle Island is in a good position. It is not far from the ruins, so if the ruins appear, we will definitely be able to detect the disturbance here. Oh, are you sure? The large male who was the leader changed expression for the first time. It is accurate from the divination. The man with the pinched mouth knew he could not put a guarantee on this kind of matter and said cautiously, however, the ruins were built in the ancient era and there are many uncertain variables, so this subordinate does not guarantee it. There have been several groups that have been circling around Turtle Island recently and must also be targeting Turtle Island. The large man showed a satisfied expression. And, you have done well. Humph. They want to compete with me. They don't want to live. When he spoke the last words, his expression became vicious and full of murderousness. The pinched-mouth male was touched by the murderousness and his expression changed slightly. Darren's murderous intent was unrivaled, no wonder he was called the Butcher. The leading male was a famous expert with the name of the Butcher, Wei Li Tian. Wei Li Tian had become famed 20 years ago, the most merciless and cruel person, and his hands were painted in blood. His ranking was even higher than Ning Yi, in the top 10 of Cloud Sea Jie. He also gathered a group of fellows that were also cruel experts, and there were 5 of them that were in the top 100. The other people, though not as famous, all had Jindan cultivation. They traveled the wilds, killing people and taking their treasures, the most famous outlaws of Cloud Sea Jie. Their numbers were always maintained at 49 people. Being the 50th person meant being eliminated from the group with only one outcome, death. 49 people, all of them Jindan, all of them with their unique techniques. Many powers wanted to destroy them, but Wei Li Tian's group wasn't just merciless in their conduct, but also cunning and malicious. There were many battalions that had fallen at their hands, many of them with great fame. Wei Li Tian knew the advantages and shortcomings of his own troop. He never faced his opponents in open combat, always running around the enemy like a cunning wolf pack, charging when he saw the chance and then biting a piece off. They had also come this time for the Sun Shinhal ruins. Wei Li Tian knew much more about it than other people because he had a Xiuzhe in his group that was skilled in divination. Qiu Ling was the weakest of all the people in his group but was one of the most crucial members. This unknown Jindan was skilled in all sorts of divination and Wei Li Tian's most trusted assistant. It had also been Qiu Ling who had persuaded Wei Li Tian. He hadn't just calculated the position of the ruins but also divined many details that people did not know. For example, only Xiuzhe with Jindan cultivation could enter the ruins. This caused Wei Li Tian's heart to move. They had 49 people that were all Jindan. In other words, all of them could enter the ruins. Other factions could also send in Jindan but they would not be as in sync and cooperate as well as Wei Li Tian's group. It could be said that Wei Li Tian had a natural advantage. In terms of collective strength, other than the three Yuanying, their group was undoubtedly fourth. Qiu Ling also divined the origins of this Shinhal. It was the Shin temple of a large tribe in the ancient era and contained almost the entire treasure trove of this tribe. This was a treasure trove almost unimaginable. Even if he did not compete with the three Yuanying, just the little bit of leftovers was enough to satisfy them and they would not need to steal for a few years. If they were lucky, they wouldn't need to worry about their entire lifespan. As to the danger, people in their profession were always in danger. They sneaked near Su Ling City but after seeing that fight between Yuanying, even this group of vicious people couldn't help but feel fear and hurriedly left Su Ling City. But they did not plan on departing and moved their eyes towards the well-positioned Turtle Island. We can't force ourselves in, the island formation isn't ordinary and we might not have enough people to charge though. Wei Li Tian's eyes were keen and instantly saw the exceptional quality of the formation. He turned around and asked a subordinate, Axian, do you recognize what formation this is? The Xiuzhe called Axian had grayish-white eyes that gave people the feeling of darkness and death. There is a yin-yang thundercloud formation, this isn't a big problem and not difficult to resolve. But it is hiding another formation, and I have not seen this formation before. It isn't simple, we need to be careful. When the words were spoken, many people had shocked expressions. Axian was naturally born with a pair of gray pupils that were able to see through many things. He was from a seal cultivating sect and skilled in all kinds of formations. It was the first time they heard Axian saw he did not recognize a formation. Wei Li Tian's expression became serious. He had expected before that this would be a hard bone to chew but he had been confident in having Axian as the ultimate weapon. He hadn't expected that even Axian did not recognize it. This caused him to smell the scent of danger. He suddenly smiled, don't rush. Since so many people are interested in Turtle Island, then we'll let them explore first. The other people's eyes lit up. As the Xiuzhe increased around Turtle Island, the mood on the island gradually became nervous. A group of Jindan Xiuzhe roaming around Turtle Island produced pressure that caused everyone's nervous to tense. This wasn't one or two Jindan, but dozens of Jindan. In reality, Zuemo and the others did not fear Jindan. The island was strong in numbers and weapons, but after the number of Jindan surpassed 10 people, they started to feel enormous pressure. A group of Jindan was enough to decide the direction of the entire battle in small-scale battles. Battalions could easily defeat 1 or 2 Jindan, but when the number reached 10, this was a power that was unable to be destroyed unless they were faced by a similar number of Jindan. Everyone rejoiced that Zuemo had spent great effort in setting up the formation. It now became the defense that they trusted the most. The meridional azure ether formation that had been processed by azure ether was more than 10 times as strong as the yin-yang thundercloud formation. What movements have these people made? Zuemo asked Gongsun Cha. Gongsun Cha's sky ray treasure lens was extremely effective and they were able to clearly see the situation outside the formation. Restless. Gongsun Cha's brow creased and a thread of murderousness flashed. Lil Miss that had just been dealt a blow by the Yuanying Xiuzhe instantly felt irritated when a group of flies flew over. Feeling the coldness in Gongsun Shidi's words, Zhou Mo laughed soundlessly. Gongsun Shidi was proud and unwilling to admit defeat. Even if the other was Yuanying, he was not willing to admit defeat. However, when he thought about it, Zhou Mo felt that he wasn't much better. Including eldest Shixiang, even though he didn't say anything, but he had been even more diligent in his cultivation the past days. He probably also wasn't giving up. At this time, an enormous explosion came from the sky. Boom! Fire crows charged at the island and activated the Yin-Yang thundercloud formation. Countless silver eels danced and smashed onto the fire crows to crush them into pieces. Gongsun Cha swiped on the sky ray treasure lens and saw a Taoist holding a gourd. There were blackish-red fire crows continuously coming out of the gourd. There were several people around the Taoist that were clearly protecting him. Gongsun Cha's face became pot-black as he left without a word. Those that were familiar with Lil Miss knew, Lil Miss was angry. The sky above Turtle Island. Taoist Master's black fire ling crows are as extraordinary as expected. Ashoja's gaze was fixed on the crows as he praised. He didn't know what those black fire ling crows were forged from, but they were not afraid of lightning. Every time they were struck by lightning, they would reform and continue to charge within the formation. The lightning would strike it to smithereens, and then it would reform again. The black fire ling crows seemed to be unable to die. The shocking lightning that had been so intimidatingly thick in the formation became thinner and the sound decreased. The number of black fire ling crows increased and it seemed to become a black patch that was spectacular to see. The fire crow Taoist was extremely proud. He had harvested the black fire from the deep in the earth to forge these black fire ling crows using a secret method over 10 years. Today was the first time they were displayed in front of everyone. He had the intentions of amazing everyone. He suddenly shouted, "Burn!" The spell on his hands changed, and the fire on the fire crows grew. The black clouds were completely burned away by the fire. The Yin-Yang thunder cloud formation was so easy defeated. There were cheers from the surroundings. Many people had shocked gazes and looked on with completely different attitudes towards the fire crow Taoist. The fire crow Taoist was even more proud and greed floated into his gaze. The news of Turtle Island's wealth had spread rapidly in the past days. With his defeat of the formation in front, he would probably get some benefits. Thinking how his purse, which had been dusty for many years, was finally going to be filled, the fire crow Taoist's face became excited. Taoist is a masterful. After the formation is defeated, I will remember your service. The leading Shouja gave the fire crow Taoist another push. The fire crow Taoist became alert and said, "Many thanks, Darren. Look at my fire chief crow." His expression became stern as he started to recite. An invisible ripple spread with him as the center. The black fire ling crows spiraling in the air seemed to smell something and became restless and violent. Pia pia pia. Fire crows exploded into balls of black flame. The exploding black flames merged into the bodies of the remaining black crows. The black fire ling crows expanded rapidly, their bodies becoming bigger, their claws even sharper with wisps of black smoke. The black feathers became even harder than before, the red patterns on them even brighter and clearer. On the forehead of the fire crows, a thread of black fire slowly pulsed. The number of fire crows rapidly shrank until only 30 fire crows remained. But the pressure given off by these 30 fire crows was even greater than the sky full of crows previously. Ba-dump. 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 As though it was the sound of the heart beating, the flames on the foreheads of the 30 fire crows pulsed simultaneously. The feeling of pressure spread and floated past everyone's minds. Each person's heart uncontrollably tightened. Chapter 486, Lil Fires. This fire crow Taoist's skill isn't bad. Wei Li Tian's expression changed slightly as he stared at the black fire ling crows without blinking. He was considering if he should recruit fire crow Taoist into his group. With the skill that the fire crow Taoist was displaying now, it was enough for him to earn a spot in this group. Xian did not speak, his eyes tightly locked on the intimidating fire crows. The Gru pupils were at full force, the fire crows in his eyes turning in balls of pulsing black flames. Each ball of black flame was pulsing at an unique rate, and the Ling power in the surroundings was flooding towards them. It was truly frightening. Yet what was completely opposite of the presence of the fire crows was the abnormal calm of Turtle Island below them. This was an unusual calm. There was no movement in the view of his gray pupils. Even the azure light that had been barely discernible before had disappeared now. It was too calm. The others seemed to be ignorant that someone was attacking their formation, not reacting at all. Xian widened his eyes and didn't dare to blink in fear he would miss a detail. For some reason, this unusual calm quickly spread through the crowd. The Xiuzha unconsciously stopped their breathing as though they were waiting for something. At this time, Fire Crow Daoist cast his spell and shouted, "Go!" The flames on the foreheads of the fire crows suddenly paused, their eyes glaring as they shot up. Their spread-out wings seemed to burn, the feathers turning rapidly to flames as the bright red patterns on the feathers turned to lines of red that mixed within the flame and added a touch of eeriness. They suddenly dove down. The air instantly was filled with fire. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 30 fire crows were like arrows shot out a bow, giving off a long black tail of fire as though they were meteors coming from the sky. Just as the fire crows seemed to pass through the formation, the azure light of the formation flashed. A thin azure shell of light that seemed like an eggshell suddenly appeared. Xian's gray pupils were suddenly covered in a layer of gray mist. He almost burst out, this was it. When he saw the yin-yang thundercloud formation, he had found that an almost indiscernible azure light existed. He had perceptively noticed this azure light, that was so easy to be missed, and quickly judged that it was in reality a very powerful formation. But this layer of weak azure light had quickly disappeared as though it was a delusion he had experienced. But Xian believed in his judgment and also his gray eyes. He patiently waited. He knew that if it was a formation, it would definitely appear again. Only now when this thin azure eggshell reappeared, he finally saw its true appearance. This transformation had occurred extremely fast that most people were unable to react in time. Among many people's exclamations, the first fire crow hit the azure light shell. Boom! Like a meteorite from heaven, each fire crow smashed heavily on the azure light shell. The fire crows were like drumsticks, and the eggshell the drum. The enormous sounds of collision beat on everyone's hearts. The sounds spread explosively and many people's bodies froze, their expressions changing. The azure eggshell shook, the fire crows suddenly exploded into countless wisps of flame that spread out. Dong dong dong. The rapid sound of collision was like a drumbeat that intimidated with every beat. Transparent air ripples spread and was like blades cutting the flesh where it passed. No one had expected these small fire crows to be so strong. This wave of Fire Chief Crow caused the spectators' hearts to almost stop beating. Many people finally recovered at this moment and exhaled heavily. The last ripple spread and it became peaceful again. The flames that had exploded now spread and covered the entire shell as it burned silently. The Fire Crow Daoist had not expected the others' formation to be secure. The Fire Chief Crow he had such high hopes for had not succeeded. This caused his face to look slightly ugly. However, he was not panicked and a smirk floated at the corner of his mouth. The dominance and maliciousness of the Fire Chief Crow was not just this. Coming out of their shock, the spectators were puzzled. Why was the Fire Crow Daoist motionless? If he did not have more powerful moves, then come down. There would naturally be people that would go up. Why wasn't he willing to come down? Yet when their gazes landed on the formation on Turtle Island, their pupils suddenly contracted. Those black-red flames that had scattered on the eggshell had not weakened. They were still tightly glued onto the shell of light and were burning silently. Was it? Many people's eyes lit up. Zhuo raised his head. That wave of Fire Chief Crow had also made him jump. Zhuo had a move called Meteor Void Fire, in the past that had been similar to this move, but his move was weak in comparison to Fire Chief Crow. As the 30 fire crows dove down, there was a feeling the sky had changed color. There was countless shouja in the world and all of them had their own secret techniques. This fire crow method appeared normal but on further inspection, it was filled with unpredictable changes. That black fire wasn't normal and if he wasn't careful, the other would succeed in breaking through the formation. Large amounts of black fire burned right next to the eggshell. Each bloom of fire was not large but they did not extinguish. Suemo furrowed his brow. He could detect that there were many corrosive powers continuously charging the meridional azure ether formation. The amount of Ling power the meridional azure ether formation was consuming had increased greatly. Based on this speed, the meridional azure ether formation would not be defeated, but the Jingshi would not be able to support it. Suemo raised his head and gazed at the black fire burning on the eggshell above his head. At this time, a red shadow suddenly charged at the shell of light. Suemo focused and was stunned. Lil, fire. Almost at the same time, Lil Pagoda took control of the meridional azure ether formation from Suemo's hands. What were these two doing? Suemo's heart jumped and his expression changed slightly. These two mischievous guys could not be playful at this time. There was a huge crowd of Jindan outside. If the formation was opened now, and the others took the chance to enter the island, then it would all be over. This was different than the attack from the Tian family last time. There were truly too many Jindan, so many that not even the battalions could defeat them. There was also a large number of low-level shouja on the island. They did not have any strength to protect themselves. If the enemy charged it, the outcome would not bear thinking. Suemo shook. Yet before he could stop them, what happened stunned him. Lil Fire's round and bouncy body was like a sticky rice bun that pasted itself onto the shell of light. Its entire face seemed to be pressed to the inner wall of the shell as it looked yearningly at the flames outside the shell, as though it saw something delicious and was drooling. Suemo almost thought his eyes were not working. He rubbed his eyes hard and made sure what he saw was not an illusion. This guy was really drooling. The following scene once again surpassed Suemo's limits of understanding. Blocked by the shell of light, Lil Fire's body rolled and it aimed its butt at the flames on the outside. Pooh! A light sound, the flames outside the shell turned to a line of fire that burrowed into the orifice of Lil Fire's behind. Suemo grabbed his head with his hands and turned to stone. Oh, heavens! What was this? He suddenly recalled how Lil Fire would sprout a thin line of fire whenever he would squeeze its round body. When he was bored, Suemo would frequently do this. As he squeezed Lil Fire's tender and bouncy body, bursts of flame would erupt and, being interesting, he used it to relieve his boredom. But now he saw that Lil Fire's orifice that sprouted fire, was furiously, no, crazily sucking in flames. Suemo felt his world was crumbling. The people beside him that had been brimming with murderousness were stunned. Such a strange scene clearly surpassed the limits of understanding for normal people. Having absorbed one thread of fire, Lil Fire gave a happy sigh and then it rolled along on the inner wall of the shell to the next fire. Everywhere Lil Fire passed, the flames on the outside turned into lines of fire and entered its orifice. Every time this happened, the formation would ripple lightly. This was because Lil Pagoda was working together with Lil Fire, the two were in great sync. Turtle Island was completely silent. Suemo and the others below watched with raised faces as though they were rows of statues. The Fire Crow Daoist's eyes were half-lidded and seemed very confident. He knew that the other people were also seeing the effects of his talisman. He was patiently waiting. The black fire Ling crows had been forged by harvesting the black fire from the depths of the earth. This kind of black fire was called the Een Granite Fiend Fire. He had searched through mountains, continents, and swamps to find this in a deep and poisonous cave. He had really used great effort and spent much thought on forging the talisman. When this Een Granite Fiend Fire burned, it would attach itself and would not extinguish until what it was burning was ash. It was extremely malicious and specialized in attacking all kinds of space and Ling shields. He had forged 108 fire crows this time. Since the Ruins event happened, he had planned to make his debut and thought of using the situation to become famous. Up until now, the development of events had not diverged from what he had predicted. The other did not know the power of the Een Granite Fiend fire and allowed it to keep burning. They were really stupid. That was good. It was time for he, the Fire Crow Taoist, to become famous. The Fire Crow Taoist was full of ambition, waiting for the Ling power of the formation to be used up and for them to charge in. At this time, the small chatter in the surroundings entered his ears. Fire Crow Taoist couldn't help but frown. This group of people had cultivated to Jin Dan, how could their composure be so lacking? When he opened his eyes and his gaze landed on the shell, it was like someone hit him over the head and sparks spun in his eyes. The shell of light that had been covered in flame just now was completely bald and empty. Why was it like this? Een Granite Fiend fire. Where was the Een Granite Fiend fire that would not extinguish until it burned all to ash? He looked dazedly at the mirror-smooth shell of azure light, green and red crossing on his face. His gourd was completely empty. He thought about how much hardship he had endured to find that Een Granite Fiend fire, he thought about the many years he had spent to forge the 108 black fire Ling crows, he thought about his ambitions and becoming famous. But there was only that eggshell of azure light left in his eyes with nothing on it. Fire Crow Taoist looked dazedly on like this for a moment, and then he suddenly sprayed a mouthful of fresh blood, dropping out of the sky like a rock. Chapter 487, Come. Having swallowed the Een Granite Fiend fire, Lil fire was like an inflated balloon, its body was now black and red. It slowly flew down from the shell of light at an extremely slow rate, as though it was a fatty that had eaten too much and was moving slowly with a large body. Lil Pagoda came out of somewhere and circled Lil fire, nudging Lil fire and then sitting on Lil fire. Darren? Isn't Lil fire a fire Yao beast? Xia Shan's expression was uncertain. Yes. Sua Mo reflexively nodded. Are all fire Yao beasts this powerful? Xia Shan showed admiration. Fire Yao beasts were not commonly seen but were not rare. More importantly, it was not expensive. Maybe he could buy a fire Yao beast. He did not know that the black fire was Een Granite Fiend fire, but he had seen the power of the fire crows, and he knew the fire was not ordinary. Even the slowest person knew that Lil fire wasn't ordinary based on how Lil fire was able to consume all the fire. Sua Mo felt slightly stunned and his expression was strange. I don't know. Xia Shan rubbed his hands and said yearningly, Darren, how about getting Ching Darren to breed a few more, and give each person one? He turned his face and looked at the slowly flying Lil fire, saying heatedly, looking at Lil fire's figure, it's one that is good at breeding. Why don't we breed a few more? Lil fire's ears were very keen. Hearing this, its round body suddenly froze. A vision suddenly floated up of it being held captive in the beast pool, a group of little Lil fires jumping around it. It uncontrollably shook. The body which had just been tinged black instantly became pitch black. With a bang, it dropped onto the ground, creating a great bloom of dirt. It furiously wriggled its ball-like body and fled in panic. Looking at Lil fire's sorry state, Sua Mo roared in laughter. His mind returned to the sky and the smile on his face gradually disappeared. The Xiuzha in the sky showed no intentions of leaving and there were several more groups that were further away. Do you think that Turtle Island is a fat piece of meat? Sua Mo smirked coldly inside. The death of the Fire Crow Taoist only caused a small furor. Everyone quickly calmed down. Other than those geniuses that came from those large sects, normal Jin Dan had to experience many battles and they were experienced with death. They were attacking a large island with an island formation, how could there not be any fatalities? But the problem was that layer of azure shell had not changed at all. Is there any signs of it weakening? Wei Li Tian asked AXN. No. AXIN's answer was very decisive. There had been a few moments where the formation had shown slight rippling, but he could not grasp what kind of effect this change indicated. He had never heard of the wonders of this formation. Ascension started to be suspicious of the origins of this group of people. This large formation was not something a normal sect could possess. Only those ancient sects with long histories could possess something like this. Turtle Island's origins are probably not simple. This formation is very powerful. Ascension decided to state his opinion because the following actions would determine his own life and death. Ascension never told lies. Wei Li Tian showed a cautious expression. He asked Qiu Ling, "Can you divine their origins?" Qiu Ling gave a grimace. This subordinate does not have the power. Many people only knew that divination could predict the future and detect all kinds of things, but did not understand there were many restrictions. If one wasn't careful, their souls would be destroyed. Also, it wasn't possible to divine everything. The more specific the matter, the harder it was to divine and the greater the price that had to be paid. Wei Li Tian did not speak. He decided to wait and see. There was a group of people not far from Wei Li Tian, Leng Wei's group that Zhong Ru had encountered in Su Ling City. Leng Wei glanced at Wei Li Tian and said in a low voice, "Everyone, be careful. That is Wei Li Tian. Butcher Wei Li Tian." Some people exclaimed. This name represented death to them. The red-clothed male showed a rebellious expression and snorted. So what if it is Wei Li Tian? If he dares come, we can kill him. Boss, can we take down this Turtle Island? Dragging on like this, these groups are like girls. Leng Wei shook his head. Not so simple, this formation is very powerful. Then what? We stand and watch, the red-robed male said urgently. That Turtle Island is brimming with wealth. If we can get it, we'll be rich. Leng Wei's brow creased. His nephew, Leng Sheng's talents were exceptional and had become a Jindan at a young age, but he was worried about the other's fiery temper. As they spoke, another few Jindan went forward and started to attack the formation. At this time, several figures suddenly flew out of the island and caused everyone to stop talking. Ha ha! Turtle Island, a bunch of turtles hiding in their shells. What? Finally can't stand it. Have you come to surrender? Ashoja said smugly, as long as you surrender and leave immediately, we'll spare your lives. Otherwise, with so many good heroes and men here, when we defeat your formation, won't leave a chicken alive. Zuo looked coldly at the surroundings and ignored that person. At his side, Ma Fan's expression suddenly changed. He snorted coldly, sneaking around. Before his voice stopped, the flying sword in his hand twisted in the air. Pew! Blood sprayed and a limb shot out of the air. A figure wailed and tripped. Ma Fan had been the best at concealment in the past. He was the first to detect someone was sneaking near Darren to try to assassinate him, so he had been merciless in his attack. At a distance, Leng Wei and the others' expressions changed. It's him. Their gazes all landed on Zhong Ru, who was standing beside Zuo. Their encounter at Su Ling City that day had left a deep impression on them of Zhong Ru, so when they saw him standing next to Zuo, they were very shocked. Wei Sheng was on Zuo's right, Shu Long on Zuo's left. Zhong Ru was next to Wei Sheng and was the second to Zuo's right. No matter who it was, none of them had imagined the true master of Turtle Island was this outrageously young youth. Looking at that face that still held a thread of tenderness, everyone found it hard to believe. Zuo did not speak and displayed great calmness. In that glance, he had judged the situation. There were 5 groups of people, and what he felt was the greatest threat was that group with 40 to 50 people. Zuo was very sensitive to the presence of battle, and he saw with a glance that this large group were not friendly. The other groups were not as high of a threat to him. Especially this group that was closest to him, there were only 5 people. So it is a little baby whose hair hasn't all grown out. Leng Sheng gave a cold snort and had an unconcerned expression. I had thought it would be a powerful person. Leng Wei did not speak. When that sword had cut off the arm, this youth that was outrageously young didn't even bat an eyelash. He was too calm. This was a calm that did not fit his age. At this time, a bellow came from the group of people nearest Suemo, such daring. At death's door, and you dare to harm one of ours. You want to die. Brothers, kill this group of children, don't leave any alive. Suemo's gaze landed on him. His eyes were cold as he spat one word out, kill. Before his words finished, Xia Shan, Ma Fan, Lei Peng, Nian Lu and Awen attacked. From the beginning, the other side had carefully maintained a distance from Suemo's group, but they had never expected the distance which they thought was extremely safe was enough for Xia Shan and the others. Xia Shan and the others had long practiced the 3-section wave killing charge. Short-distance charges were seeped down into their bones and were like an instinct. Between 2 points, a straight line was the shortest. Sword up, power, accelerate, and a charge without any finesse. For ruler straight golden sword lights flashed in everyone's field of view. The exception to guard camp, Owen walked a path completely different than the others. He was a Mo shadow guard skilled in speed. With a light saw, the feathers around him shook lightly and his body disappeared in the air like a ghost. The 5 people paled, hurriedly activating their Ling armor to block this attack. Pia. 4 heads left necks and flew into the air. The power of the 5th grade gold crystal sword was displayed in this kind of charge. The others' Ling armor was like papier-mâché and did not stop them at all. There was a bull-sized bloody hole at the throat of the last person. No one detected how it had formed. It was like the most practiced butcher treating the lamb on its board, hand up, blade down. A battle finished in the blink of an eye with one side completely losing. Many people showed a hint of terror. Such a sharp and decisive attack was out of everyone's expectations. Shouldn't they be afraid? Wei Li Tian and Leng Wei's expressions started to become grave. They saw and understood more than average Xiuzha, and the shock they received was much greater than normal Xiuzha. The 4-sword Xiuzha had made the same move, clean and crisp, an attack without any finesse. It had the scent they were familiar with, the scent of a battalion. The sky above Turtle Island was completely silent. At this time, a cold smile floated at the corner of Zuomo's mouth. He slowly said, I hadn't expected Turtle Island to receive so many heroes today. Zuomo's voice was not loud, his tone did not change. He seemed to be narrating a very normal matter but with slight disdain. Yet in this silence, his voice was so clear and echoed in the sky. At this moment, no one dared to underestimate this outrageously young island master any longer. You can fight however you want over the ruins. But... Zuomo's voice paused, his eyes fierce as he looked at the surroundings. The murderousness on his face was exposed as he slowly breathed out. If someone wants to target our Turtle Island, then you are welcome to see if my sword is sharp or not. Zuomo seemed to be uncaring that there were multiple numbers of Jindan around him. Such a great tone. A shout came from a short distance away. At Zuomo's side, Wei Sheng's brow creased. He stepped forward and his wrist turned. The black sword that was like a horse-chopping saber seemed to be pulled out of a non-existent sword sheath, one that was a void. The speed he was pulling out the sword was not fast, but as the sword rubbed the air, it created a tail of blinding sparks. A sword hum shook the surroundings. Wei Sheng dealt a blow. Chapter 488, Wei Sheng's one strike. The movement of Wei Sheng swinging the sword was filled with the feeling of ease. The large black sword that was as long as he was tall seemed weightless in his hands. Compared to the killing charge of Ma Fan and his fellows, Wei Sheng's movements held no presence. Yet everyone's expressions changed dramatically. Even Wei Li Tian and Leng Wei showed fearful expressions. Their gazes were locked on the black sword in Wei Sheng's hand. The black sword was like an ink brush and dyed the space it touched with a layer of blackness. The sky that had been sunny before slowly darkened within everyone's terrified gazes as the sword moved. Just like that, the sky darkened until night came. The empty and desolate presence was endless and vast as the ocean, and among this void ocean, the sky full of stars were as bright and glistening as diamonds. My heavens! Someone's exclamation was abnormally loud in the silent sky. The person that had been shouting suddenly stopped. He looked dazedly at the starlight in the sky and was filled with disbelief. How was this possible? How was this possible? Flipping day and night, how great did the cultivation and power have to be? The other was clearly a Jean Dan. How could he execute such a powerful move? Was this an illusion? But the scene was so real, the sky full of stars which were so close they could be touched. He could not detect any presence of an illusion. But to turn day and night using just sword essence, how terrifying. Only those great powers in the legends could have such unnatural skill. He suddenly had a bad feeling. Turtle Island's power was much stronger than he had imagined. This kind of expert should only exist in the stories. He did not notice the space around him was soundlessly twisting. What? A feeling of danger suddenly came. Before he could make any movements, his pupils suddenly expanded and his body froze where he stood. A bright red and slender line of blood silently appeared on his neck. Pew! Blood sprayed from the bloody line and scattered into the night to disappear. The youth in his field of view that was moving the sword became blurred. Who was he? With his last suspicion remaining, he lost alertness. Wei Xing's expression did not change. He took a step back, his wrist moving with the motion as the black sword slowly pushed back behind his body as though he was pushing it back into that invisible sheath. The sword created a string of sparks. When his wrist stopped moving, the black sword suddenly gave a loud hum full of unwillingness. The blackness of night visibly faded, decreasing until it disappeared. Sunlight fell down on everyone's bodies but none felt any warmth. That faint and empty sword essence caused them to unable to absorb one thread of warmth even now. There was no sharp killing intent, no bone-aching coldness, even that void was so faint it was hard to detect. The most attracting was that suddenly incoming night and the sky full of stars. Wei Xing's sword strike caused many to feel the desire to retreat. The unwilling hum of the black sword caused people's hearts to tremble. No one knew how that Xiuzhe had died. When had the bloody line on his neck appeared? This was a sword strike that was eerie and uncanny. Who was he? Everyone had the same thought. This kind of expert definitely could enter the expert rankings. Why had they never heard anyone mention him? Some with more active minds and more information suddenly recalled the disappearance of Ning Yi, Guming Gong, and the skeletal remains of Yuan Xian. The details they had missed in the past floated into their mind and they seemed to understand. Turtle Island had this kind of expert, no wonder. Zuo was also filled with shock. When Wei Xing had made his strike, all the hairs on his body had uncontrollably stood on end. Ma Fan and the others gaped. Only Zuo, Shu Long, and Zhong Ru could maintain their composure. Eldest Shixiang was as inhuman as expected. Every time eldest Shixiang was wounded, his strength would definitely explode after he healed. Zuo had originally felt proud at his progression in this past while, but in front of eldest Shixiang's sword strike that caused the sky and ground to change, his pride instantly disappeared. Eldest Shixiang had intimidated the entire battlefield. Taking advantage of the silence, Zuo smiled darkly and said with bloodthirst. Any that stays within 50 li of Turtle Island after 1 hour will be considered an enemy of Turtle Island. As he spoke, an hourglass appeared in front of him. The sand in the hourglass started to fall down. Once the words came out, many people's expressions changed and some were indignant. Zuomo's tone was as before but the meaning in his words were extremely domineering and held an unquestionable tone. These people were all ones that had their own fame and reputations. No one had ever dared to give them the order to leave with such a domineering tone. However, many people chose to leave. The power that Turtle Island displayed far surpassed their expectations. Everyone had only known that Turtle Island Battalion had been skilled, and no one had known that Turtle Island also had many experts. The crispness of attack from Ma Fan's group of 5 caused them to feel astonishment. Wei Xing's uncanny sword strike had completely extinguished the greed in their hearts. They recovered their calmness. Their goal this time was the ruins. If they were killed at Turtle Island before going into the ruins, that would be very unprofitable. Wei Li Tian ordered without hesitation, retreat. The other Xiuzhe under his command all showed surprised expressions. They knew just how vicious Boss was. The other had spoken so unreasonably and with such dominance that Boss rationally should not have agreed. No matter how powerful that person with the black sword was, he was only one person. There was nothing to be afraid of. Only Xian's expression was unchanged. He didn't seem to be surprised at this outcome at all. Just as Wei Li Tian ordered a retreat, Leng Wei also ordered unhesitatingly, "Let's go." Leng Zhen asked with disbelief, "Go? We're going like this. If you don't want to die, leave." Leng Wei said faintly. Leng Xing jumped up and said, thrusting his neck up, "Boss, this makes us seem cowardly. The other just is scaring us and have scared us Wei. How will we live in the future? Can you beat the guy with the black sword?" Leng Wei asked in response. Leng Xing stopped, but he tried to bluster, "Even if I can't, I can hold up for a while." Leng Wei looked at him and said faintly, "I also cannot win over him. Not just him, the Diana Xiu we encountered that day is as powerful as I am. So what? We have so many people. Notice that island master, you also cannot win against him. Pay attention to that guy in armor next to the Turtle Island master, you also cannot win." Leng Wei's tone was not polite. "Their battalion has not even come out. There are so many people here, do you want to enter the ruins?" Leng Wei interrupted Leng Xing's quibbling, "If you want to enter the ruins, don't provoke them." He turned around and threw back, "Those that do not leave will not enter the ruins." After almost an hour, there were only a few more than 20 Jin Dan left in the sky. They thought they were powerful enough and did not want to scurry away. However, when they found that only 20-something people remained, their expressions became ugly, especially when they saw the two groups of Wei Li Tian and Leng Wei who were most powerful also left. "Time's up." Zuo grinned viciously at the people left. "I want to see who dares to attack," a Xiuzhe said with an excited expression. "When did this sky become owned by Turtle Island, idiot?" Zuo spat out and his body disappeared. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Zuo's group all disappeared. These Xiuzhe had never thought it. Zuo and the others really dared to attack and were unprepared. It wasn't just Wei Xing that had improved. Zhongru took out the crossed prayer wheel and slowly turned it. Bright sutra characters floated off the prayer wheel into the sky. As Zhongru chanted in a low voice, the golden characters slowly floated to a few Xiuzhe. When the sutra characters flew near their target, they seemed to be pinned to the air. The enemy felt their bodies suddenly feel impossibly heavy and it was hard to even move a finger. The sutra characters floating in the sky suddenly dropped dots of yellow sand. These tiny gold sand grains contained extremely great power. The smell of sky soil suddenly increased in the air. The 9-turn sky-earth disk had been completely merged into the prayer wheel. Zhongru had also merged the power of the 9-turn sky-earth disk into the Diana Xiu's reincarnation illusory realm, calling it the Sky-Earth Diana realm. The power increased, and so did its wonders. Zhongru used wish power to wash each speck of sky-earth sand day and night. The prayer wheel, a talisman that had never appeared before in any records, gradually transformed as Zhongru forged it day and night. Even he was unable to control some of the transformations. In the last fight, he had comprehended many of the abilities of the Attainment Golden Body. It was a 6th-grade Diana spell and contained many abilities. As the opponent was pulled into the Sky-Earth Diana realm, the other's Ling armor experienced 3 types of power, the Sky-Earth, the Diana presence, and wish power. It instantly shattered and before the Xiuzhe could wail, he lost his life. The sutra characters in the air suddenly lit up like monsters that had just filled their stomachs and returned to the prayer wheel. Zhongru chanted lowly and spun the prayer wheel to rid the prayer wheel of the thread of evil energy. Among the crowd, the most attention-catching was Zhuo, who had been consuming many Dan lately had a great increase in his Ling power. This caused his level in the other two powers to grow greatly. His speed was like lightning, his power peerless in its dominance. He charged left and right like a human-shaped beast. Everywhere he passed, blood and flesh flew. The others had come up to his door shouting to fight and to kill. He had been irritated for a long time and did not have any mercy as he fought. He used all 6 transformations of the Great Damo physique in turn. As he killed, he felt unspeakably comfortable and couldn't help but howl. He seemed to have plucked an invisible cord, and many areas of the skills that had been blurry in the past suddenly became clear as though he could reach out and touch them. As though it was following the flow, the domineering midday blade in his hands suddenly disappeared, his consciousness bloomed and twisted like flowers and scrolls. Countless Yao arts flooded his chest and was almost going to burst out. At this moment, someone abrupt happened. Chapter 489, Ambush. A blinding light appeared beside his feet without any warning. His vision turned completely white and he was unable to see a thing. A dangerous and trembling presence was aimed straight at his brow and his heart jumped. Shocked, his body had almost unconsciously retreated. Ambush. Someone was ambushing him. Damn it. He had not even detected the other's existence. The shock he felt was indescribable. Zhuo had been through hundreds of the fights, but this was the first time someone managed to ambush him from right in front. The light void wings were activated to their maximum power, time seemed to stretch out at this moment, and everything seemed so slow. That thread of intimidating killing energy was like glue. No matter how Zhuo dodged or tried to escape, it was tightly following him. The sharp and bone-chilling killing presence, the strong pressure that seemed to aim straight between his brow caused Zhuo's nerves to be tense to their limits. The light void wings were furiously flapping at a remarkable rate, the air was howling in his ears and carried the exclamations of shock from Wei Sheng and the others, but Zhuo did not hear any of this. All of his attention was focused on that point of killing essence that was seemingly tangible. His 10 fingers seemed to be strumming the pipa as a string of blinding lights continuously expanded in front of him. Little Yao arts. At this crucial moment, what Zhuo could choose was only little Yao arts. Simple and instantaneous, this most basic Yao arts became Zhuo's only choice at the moment. Bam bam bam. The sound of breaking was like a drumbeat. That thread of intimidating murderousness was not affected at all. In front of it, the little Yao arts were like layers of paper mache, and the dot of black within the sky full of fragmented energies did not change at all. The dark and cold killing essence made him feel as though he was in a glacier and the blood inside his body seemed frozen. Terror was like a great poison that spread to every corner of Zhuo's body. The god of death was so close to him, the rotten breath of the death gold almost breathing onto his face. Was he going to die? This thought uncontrollably appeared in his mind. Time seemed to stop at this moment, everything in the surroundings became silent. His chaotic consciousness became normal again. The killing essence was still bone-penetrating, but the terror inside had disappeared. Zhuo entered a very strange state. In this moment, his mind was as clear as the water in a lake, the impulse that had accumulated due to the Yao arts suddenly erupted like a volcano. His fingers swiped through the motions as though they were out of his control. Strange paths, strange Ling power vibrations, strange feeling, but everything was so natural as though it was water flowing. 10 dots of light were like 10 spinning stars drawing out 10 serene blue lights. Complex Yao arts flowed past his mind. The serene blue light that his fingers were producing grew brighter. Zhuo's mind was abnormally calm. The slender yet bright serene blue light seemed to grow like bean sprouts and climbed onto Zhuo's hands. His hands seemed to be covered in serene blue gloves of light. When these two hands met in the air, a light that was as blinding as sword energies suddenly exploded from in front of Zhuo's chest. Arg! A howl of beast suddenly swept past with an ancient presence. As though there was a wasteland beast looking down authoritatively under a full moon. Archaic wasteland sacrificial art. The ambusher made a light sound. His body was like an earthworm that twisted strangely. The sky full of light suddenly retreated and it turned into a sword light that suddenly increased in speed and shot at Zuo. Wei Xing's heart sank down. His sword strike that had flipped day and night looked easy, but in reality, it was his masterpiece. It didn't just contain his recent comprehensions, it had also consumed the greater half of his Ling power. The strength of the ambusher far surpassed his imagination. Even if his Ling power was not used up, he may not be a match for the other if they faced each other in true combat, much less an ambush. This ambusher's sword light was grand, but the sword essence was cunning and poisonous. It was not similar to any sword essence he had seen before. The other had comprehension of sword essence that was even higher than Wei Xing's. Where had such a powerful enemy come from? But at this time, he could not attend to anything else. Wei Xing's black sword pointed at the other, the Ling power in his body boiling as it furiously flooded into the black sword. The ambusher suddenly twisted and bounced away strangely. A dark sword energy had suddenly appeared where he just had been standing, as though a cut had been made on the sky. The ambusher seemed to have detected it a long time ago, and turned his head back with ease to stare at Wei Xing. Wei Xing saw a pale white mask, ugly and unmoving, tightly worn on the enemy's face. The pair of eyes within the eye slits were full of dark murderousness. The other suddenly grinned and the pale white mask was pulled into a strange smile that caused anyone who looked to feel a chill. Wei Xing's eyes blurred and he lost track of the other. But his pupils suddenly contracted. At this time the sword light viciously stabbed into the light in front of Zuomo's chest. A beast's howl that carried an ancient presence suddenly spread outwards with Zuo as the center. The dust and smoke dissipated, leaving behind a shadow that was like a little mountain, an ancient colossal beast that appeared in everyone's vision. The two lantern-sized eyes were full of dignity. There was a bright sword energy held in its mouth. Zuo panted heavily, his hands covered in light, one position forward and one back as though he was trying hard to grab onto something. Sweat snaked down his forehead. His eyes were glaring, his hands trembling slightly as though he was using great strength. That bright sword energy was like a little snake that constantly struggled. The sword energy gradually dimmed until it disappeared. The wasteland beast that was like a little mountain crumbled soundlessly and also disappeared. Seeing Zuo was fine, everyone released a breath. Then they all looked warily at the surroundings to stop that strange sword show from making an ambush again. After a while, there was no movement and Zuo sat down on his behind, only able to pant. From the moment he was ambushed until now, it was just the span of a blink of an eye, but the danger he experienced was something only Zuo, who had been targeted on by the sword light, experienced. The line between life and death. He was just a hair's width away from death. Thinking about it now, he still felt fear. A group of Shouja suddenly flew up from below and encircled Zuo in the middle. Gong Sun Cha had given the order after seeing Zuo ambushed. Recovered, Zuo forced a smile and said, "Such a powerful sword show. We have really met an expert now." His smile was even uglier than crying. Without an exception, everyone else had terrible expressions. If something had happened to Darren just now, they would be unpardonable. But thinking about the sword show that wore the pale white mask, everyone's hearts shook. How he had sneaked in front of Zuo, how he had released that sword energy, how he had left, no one knew. Even Wei Xing only managed a brief glimpse before the figure blurred and he had lost the other's trace. From beginning to end, the other had been at great ease. Let's return to the island. Zuomo's group instantly returned to Turtle Island and opened the formation as soon as they were back. Fortunately, the formation had the ability to function as an alarm. If a person did not have a jade disc, they would be unable to enter the island. Otherwise, Zuo would have to worry the assassin would be mixed among the crowd and wormed his way onto the island. Then it would be great trouble. In the cloud sea about 10 li from the island, a figure slowly rose from the cloud sea soundlessly. A pale white mask looked back at Turtle Island and then slowly sank into the cloud sea. "Have you found him?" Zuo asked. Thoughts of the terrifying sword Xiao that ambushed him circled Zhuo Mo's mind like a nightmare. He did not know why the other had not continued his ambush. The greater majority of being able to escape alive this time was due to his luck. If he encountered this guy again, Zhuo Mo didn't dare to guarantee that his luck would be this good. The other was far more powerful than they were. Even Wei Xing honestly said his strength could not rival the other. Someone this powerful definitely could not be unknown. Having such a powerful assassin target him, Zhuo Mo felt that he wouldn't be even to get a steady sleep, so he decided to get to the bottom of this matter. Therefore, when Zhuo Mo returned to the island, he immediately sent out all his forces to investigate this person. He had paper crane messages with Liao Qichang, but he had not expected Liao Qichang to run to the island in person. Liao Qichang's expression was very strange. This guy isn't not from Cloud Xijie. Not from Cloud Xijie. Zhuo Mo was slightly astonished. When Liao Qichang received the news that Zhuo Mo had been ambushed, he had been greatly shocked. His connection with Turtle Island was relatively intimate and knew much more than regular people. Even Ning Yi and the others had not fared well on their hands, yet there was a person that was able to kill Zhuo Mo. How could he not be shocked? His first thought was, this guy should not be from Cloud Xijie. His thought was quickly proven. The other was not from Cloud Xijie as he expected. But when he discovered the other's origins, he was even more shocked. He felt this was not an ordinary matter and made a trip specifically to Turtle Island. According to your narration, this person should be the famous masked assassin. This person is unusually strange and skilled in assassination. He is a very famous assassin. He's not famous in Cloud Xijie, but famous in the entire Four Realms. Liao Qichang's tone was slightly nervous. This powerful? Zhuo Mo jumped in fright. Even more powerful than this. Liao Qichang licked his lips. He may be a Jindan, but what made him famous was that he had successfully assassinated a Yuanying, Long Hong, 5 years ago. This caused him to rank in the top 10 of Jindan assassins, top 10 among all Four Realms Jindan assassins. He is 7th now, and he has never failed against a Jindan target, including large sect disciples such as from your Kunluan. You are the first. Speaking of this, Liao Qichang was slightly excited. He did not pay attention to the gaping mouth of Zhuo Mo and continued, you are going to be famous now. Even the masked assassin was unable to kill you. It would be difficult for you to not become famous. Ning Yi isn't anything, isn't even worthy of holding the other's shoes. There was no pride on Zhuo Mo's face, and his face was extremely ugly. Had successfully assassinated a Yuanying. My heavens! How had he provoked such a great personage? An assassin ranked 7th in all of Four Realms Jindan assassins. Zhuo Mo's face was ashen. Chapter 490, Apparition for the Remote Cloud Xijie. An assassin ranked 7th on the Four Realm Heaven Jindan ranking was a great personage among personages. The Four Realm Heaven was truly too enormous, so enormous that no one would pay any attention to the rankings at a usual time. When a truly famous expert suddenly appeared in Cloud Xijie, the shock that was produced could be imagined. It was not outrageous to use truly famous to describe this person. Even though the great majority had never heard the name of the masked assassin before, that did not hinder them from understanding the significance of the 7th-ranking Jindan assassin in all of Four Realm Heaven. Even those Yuanying Xiuzhe showed shocked expressions that had not appeared for decades when they heard this name. Since the Yuanying were like this, then nothing had to be said more for Jindan Xiuzhe. Due to this, the news that the Turtle Island master managed to stop the ambush of the masked assassin quickly spread through all of Cloud Xijie. Adding on that it was the first time the masked assassin had failed, this added a mysterious halo onto Zhuo Mo's body. It was worth pondering why the masked assassin appeared at this time. Had he also come for the Ascension Temple ruins? This caused everyone to increase their attention on the Ascension Temple. A ruin that could attract the 7th-ranking Jindan assassin, how could it be simple? Normal people just watched the spectacle and wanted the situation to become as large as possible. Those people that were preparing to enter and explore the ruins were extremely dispirited. The bigger the ruckus about the ruins, the more competitors they had. Thinking about the possibility of encountering the masked assassin, many people had thoughts of retreat. The appearance of the masked assassin caused the situation to have a slight change. Even the Yuanying Xiuzhe that had thought they would have almost certain success couldn't help but feel slightly unconfident. The masked assassin was a dangerous person that could kill a Yuanying. The other effect of this matter was related to Zuemo. On the expert ranking of Cloud Sea Jia, the ranking of Turtle Island Master rocketed up and charged into the top 10 to rank at number 5. Wei Xing also entered the top 10. His astounding sword strike that had reversed day and night caused him to enter the top 10 to rank at number 9. There were no people or animals within 100 li of Turtle Island. No one dared to target Turtle Island anymore. Even the 3 Yuanying ordered their subordinates to not provoke Turtle Island. If the battle with the Tian family could be said to have caused Turtle Island to enter everyone's eyes, then the fight this time caused Turtle Island to jump to becoming one of the most powerful factions in Cloud Sea Jia. Turtle Island also became the only factions that had 2 people in the top 10 expert ranking. Right now, Turtle Island's only worry was if the masked assassin would return. If the masked assassin did not return, there would not be problem, but if the masked assassin did not plan to let the matter go, could the Turtle Island Master escape the calamity? Many people were curious, how did the Turtle Island Master provoke the masked assassin? One was an unknown local faction, the other was a top expert that was famous in 4-realm heaven. The two did not seem to have a connection at all. Zuemo also could not understand. He almost wrung out his mind but still did not learn anything. He wasn't happy at all at the increase in his ranking. If it was possible, he would give up his rank if he could not be enemies with the masked assassin. The other's strength far surpassed theirs. This was the first time Zuemo had such a deep understanding of the difference in power with the other. Even when he faced Clear Sky Old Forefather, he had never felt so helpless. The assassin Xiuzhe that walked in the shadows were the enemies that were the hardest to deal with and the most bothersome. They would always strike a fatal blow when you were at your most careless and numb. You had to pay attention at every second to guard against their ambush that could occur at any moment. There is no good solution, so you cannot leave the island during this time. Gong Sun Cha looked at Zuemo facing such an enemy. Lil Miss also did not have a solution. His methods were not effective. Zuemo grimaced. We can only do this. The only thing he rejoiced about was that the meridional azure ether formation that he had spent so much effort to set up seemed worth the effort now. It became the barrier that Zuemo trusted the most. Even if it was the masked assassin, unless he had some special talisman, he could not sneak into Turtle Island. The meridional azure ether formation was much more secure than Zuemo had imagined. Hidden on Turtle Island, he was safe, but for Zuemo, this feeling was terrible and suffocating. Even if the other was the 7th-ranked Jindan assassin. Strongly motivated, Zuemo started to fanatically cultivate. Zuemo was not the only one. Wei Xing and the others started to madly cultivate as well. In these past few years, they had dominated in all their fights. Even though they had not been unstoppable, when had they been suppressed to the point it was so suffocating? The heated cultivation atmosphere spread on Turtle Island. At a place about 500 li from Su Ling City, the Cloud Sea started to violently stir. A golden light passed through the Cloud Sea and pointed at the sky. The parts of the Cloud Sea near the pillar of light seemed to boil and stir restlessly. The golden-colored light grew thicker, and the light even more blinding. On Turtle Island, everyone was attracted by such a strange scene. An enormous golden pillar of light stood between the sky and the Cloud Sea as though it was holding up the sky. Was it going to start? Zuemo gazed at the light pillar and balled his hands. Cloud Sea Jia exploded. All of Cloud Sea Jia, in all the corners, people saw this scene. The pillar of light did not dim but grew brighter and thicker. In the span of a few short days, the area that the pillar of light covered reached a radius of 150 li. Everyone was deeply shocked by this colossal golden pillar of light. Once they flew within 1,000 li, they would increasingly feel the enormity of this pillar of light. No matter how powerful the Xiuzhou was, they would have a feeling that they were as insignificant as a flea when they flew close. Countless people departed from all directions towards Suling City like a flood. The great majority of them had not intended to go into the ruins but to observe this spectacular marvel from the distance. Yet this enormous golden pillar of light caused the hearts of many Xiuzhou that had not planned to enter the ruins to move. All factions gathered their people to come to Suling City. The little Suling City was filled with people. The three Yuanying became unusually low-key, and those arrogant and bold Jindan put their tails between their legs. There were too many people. If they were careless and attracted the anger of the public, even the greatest power could not help them. Many people tried to go closer to the light pillar, but people quickly found that no matter how they tried, they could not get within 20 li of the light pillar. There was an invisible barrier that stopped them from going near. Some daring people tried to attack it. But all the attacks seemed to dissipate like mud entering the ocean and did not create any disturbance. This is really a great party. Li Shu gazed at the packed crowds, and the excitement on their faces as he sighed. Lu Zhen was slightly worried and said with self-blame, this subordinate did not accomplish the task. If the news had not been leaked, it would be the same if it had not leaked. Li Shu comforted in a warm tone. Look at this light pillar, it cannot be concealed. It is better like this, those that will go naturally will go, and those that won't will not be moved. Lu Zhen hurriedly said, Darren is right. He paused slightly and then said carefully, Darren, should we ask for more people? Li Shu shook his head. No need. The situation inside is complex, more people does not mean it is better. Do not worry, we have the elder. Even more, we have not prepared so many years for nothing. Seeing Li Shu's confidence, Lu Zhen's heart rested slightly. Upon further thought, he found it was true. With the great power of the sect, they had started tea plans so many years ago, and definitely would have found many of the secrets. There were many elders skilled in divination within the sect, yet they only send one elder and Li Shu Shixiang, so they should be absolutely confident. For ruins like this, what was most important was not how powerful one was, but how much information one had. Let's wait 5 more days. Li Shu smiled slightly and with deep meaning. Shu Long's handsome face seemed slightly dark as he stared at the wall in front of him. He had actually been unable to do anything last time when Darren had been ambushed. This caused him to feel unprecedented humiliation. In the past, he had focused more on urging others to cultivate and did not obsess over individual strength. In his view, Darren did not lack for experts at his side. No matter if it was Wei Sheng or Zhong Ru, they were rare experts. But last time, Darren had almost died, and he felt great self-recrimination. In the end, it was just that he wasn't strong enough. Returning to the island, he burrowed into the cave and started to furiously cultivate. Even Awen and the other Xiuzhou were furiously cultivating, so much that they did not even go to look at the light pillar outside. They were only cultivating, continuously cultivating. Yet what Shu Long had not expected was that his cultivation was interrupted. What is it? He asked. We cannot dig any further, a hardship guard stood out and said, we do not know the reason. A few days ago, the granites suddenly became harder than usual and more difficult to dig. The deeper we dug, the harder it was to dig. Digging to here, we can't advance at all. Shu Long walked in front of the stone wall. They all lived inside the cave. The Yin Fiend presence inside the cave was extremely heavy and greatly beneficial for their cultivation. For all of Guard Camp, the previous cave had not been large enough, so Shu Long had decided to dig deeper. He later found that the rock had been permeated by the Yin Friends and the process of digging was also a great help to their cultivation. So digging holes became one of the daily cultivation tasks of Hardship Camp. He hadn't expected a problem to occur to their daily cultivation method. Shu Long tapped the stone wall. He didn't even leave behind a finger mark. He took out his MO weapon and struck hard. Cling! Sparks flew. There wasn't even a trace left on the stone wall. Shu Long made a sound of surprise and reached out to touch the wall. It was unusually smooth. He noticed at this moment the stone wall in front of him was unusually smooth and did not look as though it was naturally formed at all. There was something strange. Chapter 491, Rock Walls. Mo examined the rock wall from top to bottom and occasionally rubbed his palm back and forth on it. In reality, he was muttering in low voices with the two old geezers, Pu Yao and Wei. Do you recognize this? This thing definitely is not natural. Mo was like a curious baby. Whoa, it really is hard. This rock wall was dark gray-green and did not look any different than normal soil, but no matter if it was a flying sword or a Mo weapon, they could not leave a mark behind. It seems as though someone has reinforced it with Shin power. Wei hesitated and then said. Pu Yao's enchanting voice sounded. He was slightly shocked. Yes, it is Shin power. Shin power? Mo was slightly disappointed as he muttered, I had assumed this was a treasure. Such a big treasure, it would be very valuable. So it is just reinforced with some Shin power. He then asked curiously, what is Shin power? That it's this powerful. The so-called Shin power is the power that ancient warriors used. Do you remember the strange corpse from the sealed extinction battlefield? What he used was Shin power. Shin power is different when compared to any present power, and is enormously powerful, Wei explained patiently. If your power can go up another level, you may produce Shin power, Pu Yao suddenly said. I produce Shin power. Mo first still and then reacted. So this Shin power is the three powers merged together? Three powers merged together is not Shin power. But Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and the Mo physique are all powers that were derived from Shin power. No one actually knows what the ancient Shin power is really like. I had thought to be able to see it from the strange corpse, but his power was traceless and I could not see it. Seeing that Pu Yao showed no intentions of speaking, Wei knew that the duty of explaining fell on his shoulders, so he could only continue speaking. So it is like this. Mo seemed to only partially understand. He suddenly paled. Is there also someone as powerful as the strange corpse behind the rock wall? Pu Yao really could not stop himself and said scornfully, do you think old monsters like the strange corpse are like common as lettuce on sale at the market? That another one will just easily jump out? The ancient tribes have fallen for an unknown number of years, they are extinct. Just one of them being able to survive until now is great luck. Then why is there Shin power here? Mo pointed at the wall and asked with innocence. Pu Yao snorted coldly and said, there are many things that can contain Shin power. Ancient Shin treasures, ruins that are relatively well conserved, they can all preserve Shin power. Ruins? Mo's eyes lit up. Would it be the Sun Shin temple behind this rock wall? The news of the Sun Shin temple had spread out long ago. Also, that enormous golden pillar of light was very close to Turtle Island and they could see it without even raising their heads. A pillar of light with a radius of 150 li was like a colossus that emanated extreme pressure. The light pillar did not extinguish during the day or night. Turtle Island was greatly affected and even their nights were as bright as day. Even though Mo had resolved long ago not to enter the fight over benefits, but this strange rock wall made him uncontrollably think of the Sun Shin temple ruins. Wei said deeply, this might be a possibility. Mo's mind became alert. Even though he did not plan on joining the fight, he would not refuse treasure if it was delivered to his door. Also, if the ruins were truly behind the rock wall, that meant that Turtle Island was connected to the ruins. They could secretly enter. The more Mo thought, the hotter his blood burned. Pu Yao said with a cold smirk, even if the ruins are behind this wall, you cannot enter. This rock wall is filled with Shin power, and is much harder than normal talismans. If you cannot break through the rock wall, how can you enter the ruins? Mo's heart was instantly cooled. After being silent for a moment, he said reluctantly, is there no solution at all? There are methods, Wei said gravely. Like grabbing the last stalk of life-saving grass, Mo suddenly became alert and said, what method? Quick, speak. Wei looked at him. You have 3 powers merged as one. If you progress one more step, you may actually comprehend Shin power. If you can comprehend Shin power, this rock wall will be an easy matter for you. Comprehend Shin power. How to comprehend? Quick, tell me. Suemo stared with begging eyes at Wei. Pu Yao barked a laugh and said disdainfully, "Ha! Comprehend Shin power." Wei said with slight helplessness, "This is only a theoretical possibility. Shin power is extremely repels us. I do not know what Shin power really is like. If it wasn't that all 3 powers were derived from Shin power, there wouldn't even be a theoretical possibility. As for comprehending Shin power, you need to rely on yourself to explore. Don't waste your efforts. Use the energy to cultivate," Pu Yao said ambiguously from the side. His body suddenly disappeared as he threw down, "So boring, you guys play on your own." Seeing the situation, Wei could only shrug and spread his hands in helplessness. "I only know this much." Suemo came out of the empty sea of consciousness. Rubbing the mirror-smooth rock wall, his thoughts drifted. Shin power, it sounded so unreliable. But if he succeeded? Countless rare talismans, countless jingsher and other treasures floated past Suemo's eyes. Ruins. This was the ruins of a Shin temple. An ancient Shin temple, how could it not have some talismans? Thinking about how he didn't have many acceptable talismans, Suemo instantly felt restless. Damn it! He'll do it. The worst case was just wasting a few days' worth of time. Gritting his teeth, Suemo decided to try. In any case, this was a business without any cost, and he couldn't lose anything. If the ruins opened and he had not succeeded, he would seal this place and set down a formation to prevent people from entering the island through this way. Shu Long and the others stared at each other. They found that Darren's hands were rubbing here and there on the rock wall with a flushed face. He looked very strange and slightly perverted. Everyone shook in unison and the words flashed across their minds, "So scary." 2 figures suddenly appeared in the empty sea of consciousness. "It is not good that we are fooling him like this." Wei was slightly hesitant. "Fool him? Where did we fool him? Isn't that Shin power? Didn't the 3 powers descend from Shin power?" Pu Yao had a righteous expression. "But, what if he doesn't succeed?" Wei halted his words. "Doesn't succeed?" Pu Yao rolled his eyes and said irresponsibility. "There is no loss to us." Pausing, he then said even more irresponsibly, "There's no loss to him either." "That's true." Wei was reassured. The 2 disappeared at the same time. Shin power. Damn it. What was Shin power? Suemo gritted his teeth as he repeatedly muttered as though he was possessed. He had gone over the rock wall thousands of times with his hands and hadn't found anything. It may have been that he had touched it too much, but he felt that the rock wall was much smoother than before and felt like a mirror. He asked for help from Wei, but Wei always had a burdened face. He asked for help from Pu Yao, but this guy didn't help him, and even scorned him to the point that Suemo wanted to bomb him into smithereens. Gu has principles. Suemo recited 100 times and recovered his fighting spirit. He pulled up his sleeves and used the posture of the poison ivy, gluing himself to the wall, for a new round of fighting. Unless life ends, the battle does not stop. The winds howls, the river is cold, the hero climbs the wall and never to return. Shin power, where are you? Suemo did not discover anything in the entire day. No matter if he was touching, hitting, or hammering, no matter what he did, the rock wall did not react at all. This rock wall was also very strange. No matter if Suemo used Ling power, spiritual power, or the Mo physique, the rock wall would produce a strong repellent power that forcibly pushed him aside. Suemo tried to adjust the 3 powers, and even tried to use all 3 at the same time. The rock wall was not as resistant when he did this, but the 3 powers were like mud thrown into the ocean, and did not even cause a ripple. The rock wall was still that rock wall, unchanged. "Bro, give a response." Suemo wanted to cry. He felt he was like the mouse pulling the turtle and did not know where to start. Shu Long felt it would be better for less people to see Darren like this, so he hurried everyone else out. Out of consideration for safety, he still arranged for people to stand guard outside to prevent any accidents from happening to Darren. After arranging all this, Shu Long threw himself back into his crazy cultivation. All of guard camp was immersed in this furious cultivation atmosphere. It wasn't just them, Vermilion Bird Camp was also the same. For this, Golden Crow Camp had specially forged all kinds of lingdan that were open to everyone so that each person had a daily ration. The incident of Zhuo Mo's attempted assassination had deeply stimulated every single person on Turtle Island. If something happened to Darren, the consequences. No one dared to imagine. Zhuo Mo was deathly exhausted after working for a whole day. He and the rock wall seemed to be at odds. The power of the rock wall was not ferocious or offensive, but it greatly expended his 3 powers. Unknowingly in this struggle, the power inside Zhuo Mo had been completely wrung out without a drop left. When Zhuo Mo realized this, he was so tired he didn't even want to move a finger. Leaning against the rock wall, he fell into a deep sleep. How long has it been since he slept like a normal person? Zhuo Mo couldn't remember. As his power grew, his need for sleep decreased by the day. After cultivating the Great Mo physique, he didn't even need sleep. He was in a heavy sleep like a child. The dark cave was silent and an undetectable light suddenly floated on the rock wall. The light was extremely weak and carried a slight green as it slowly permeated Zhuo Mo's body. Deep in slumber, Zhuo Mo did not detect it. The speed of the green energy's permeation was not fast and it was soundless. Suddenly, Zhuo Mo's dantian and the space between his brows suddenly lit up. At the same time, his body lit up with a faint golden energy. At this most crucial time, Zhuo Mo's 3 powers started to cooperate to stop the green energy. The speed of the green energy's permeation instantly slowed. The lights on Zhuo Mo's body continuously changed. 4 kinds of power, 4 kinds of light, all lit up and dimmed, changing constantly. There was no pain on his face. He had an infant-like smile on the corner of his mouth and he was in a sweet sleep. He was having a strange dream. Chapter 492, Greenwood's Secret Realms. Zhuo Mo was having a very strange dream. There were endless clouds and water over the remote swamp, the howls of unknown wild beasts sounding among the waist-high grasses, long multicolored birds with their long tails flying around the high and green forests. The sky suddenly darkened, Zhuo Mo raised his head and inhaled sharply. An large and strange-looking unidentified bird slowly passed over his head, like a black cloud. Zhuo Mo had never seen such a gigantic bird before. In front of it, the wasteland beast was like a little child. Its spread wings covered the sun and sky, creating darkness, and everywhere it passed, it was as though night had come. He dumbly gaped with an upraised face. Before he could recover from his shock, a low voice suddenly came from behind him. "Who are you? Why have you invaded my Greenwood secret realm? Leave now, and your life will be spared." Zhuo Mo jumped in fright and hurriedly turned around. He found that a blurry figure had appeared near him at an unknown time. This person was clearly near him, but no matter how he tried, Zhuo Mo could not make out his figure. The other's figure was a blur. Greenwood's secret realm? Where is this place? Who are you? Why am I here? Zhuo Mo asked dazedly. He still hadn't managed to react and understand how he had appeared here. He tried to recall, but his memories seemed to be blank. The other did not seem to expect Zhuo Mo to ask such a question and was instantly stunned. He said to himself, "Who am I? You don't even know who you are." Zhuo Mo asked curiously. He suddenly found the other was especially slow. "Who am I? Who am I?" the dark figure recited over and over, his tone slightly panicked. He could not remember. Zhuo Mo suddenly felt the other was pitiful and felt some empathy due to being afflicted with the same predicament himself. His features had been changed and his memories erased, so all of his memories before Wukong Mountain had disappeared. Don't rush, don't rush. Zuemo hurriedly comforted the other, "It's all right if you cannot remember. A man's name is meaningless in this world." The other stopped and seemed to ponder Zuemo's words. Zuemo said in a familiar tone, "Brother, what is this Greenwood secret realm? Are you familiar with this place?" "Of course I am familiar," the other unconsciously replied. "The Greenwood secret realm is the Greenwood secret realm, the place that I guard." "So this is brother's territory." Zuemo's eyes instantly lit up and he flattered, "No wonder I feel that big brother is of such extraordinary bearing. From the presence, you do not seem like the average person. These days, anyone with territory is a great person. Big brother, you are too strong. Since this is big brother's territory, big brother has to cover little brother." It may have been that he was shaken by Zuemo's words or that he still hadn't recovered from the conundrum of who he was, but he paused when facing Zuemo's flattery and then asked dumbly, "What is cover?" "That is, if there is wine, everyone drinks together, and if there is food, everyone eats together," Zuemo said with a thick face. He was not speaking nonsense, he just felt that the other held no enmity towards him. It may have been that the other also had amnesia, that Zuemo found a thread of intimacy with the other. This kind of feeling was very rare for Zuemo. The shadow made a sound of acknowledgement without real understanding. The blurry figure started to clear and Zuemo finally saw the other's true features. A head full of bright green hair that extended to the shoulders, a handsome but thin face, the features were exquisite as though they were carved. The black and shining eyes were as deep as the dark night that stared at Zuemo with interest. The clothing he wore was made from countless black-green vines with the leaves as armor that were layered beautifully. As expected of Big Brother. So handsome that women will have to use illusory formations. Zuemo gave another piece of flattery. After saying this, he couldn't help but feel a sense of tragedy. Every person around him was extraordinarily handsome, and as their boss, there was too much pressure on him. No wonder it had been such a long time since he had encountered those beautiful women in illusory formations, the ones that increased a person's heartbeat and the flow of blood. It was probably related to this. Women use illusory formations? The other had a confused expression. He clearly did not know what Zuemo was speaking about. Zuemo did not explain and looked in all directions as he asked curiously, "Big brother, how did I get here?" "This is the Greenwood secret realm of the Ascension Temple. Are you here to explore the Ascension Temple?" The other suddenly lost his woodenness, his eyes as sharp as knives that seemed to pierce Zuemo's heart. Zuemo shook and his memories came back like a flood. He instantly remembered everything. "This is the Ascension Temple," Zuemo said with bewilderment. "I was clearly studying Shin power by touching the rock wall. Have I comprehended Shin power?" "Comprehend Shin power?" The green-haired male's brow creased. "Shin power is innate, how can there be comprehension?" "Shin power is innate?" Zuemo's head shook like a rattle drum. "I never heard of anyone born with Shin power. It might be that the ancient era is different than the cultivators now. Shin power was lost a long time ago. What we cultivate now is Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and Mo physique. Shin power is lost?" The green-haired male stilled. "Tens of thousands of years, it would be strange if it was not lost," Zuemo muttered. In reality, he didn't have good feelings regarding ancient things. Even the archaic wasteland sacrificial art that was from just a few thousand years ago had tortured him to the point he wanted death, much less an ancient power like the soul-setting divine light. Tens of thousands of years, so it has been tens of thousands of years, the green-haired male murmured to himself, his expression lost. "Big brother, are you all right?" Zuemo asked carefully. The green-haired male did not pay attention to him. A long while later, he gave a long sigh and said, "So the Sun tribe is also gone?" Zuemo nodded. "Gone a long time ago. There are no tribes now, no totems. I've gone to the sealed extinction battlefield. There is a patch of gold crystal sand sea there. It should be the place that a warrior of the Sun tribe fell. Oh, I also saw the Sun crystal seed." Zuemo recalled the Sun crystal seed that he had gotten from the sealed extinction battlefield. After the strange corpse sealed the sun crystal seed, it was like a normal crystal ball. He only knew this was something good, but up until now, he did not know how to use it. The strange corpse only told him this was a good item, but Zhuo couldn't even determine its grade, and didn't know when he could use it. Wealth should not be shown. Zhuo did not know if the other would be greedy, so he didn't plan on taking it out. Sun crystal seed, as strong as the sun tribe is, it cannot escape the ravages of time. The green-haired male sighed, and then he suddenly raised his head to look at Zhuo with a wry smile. Even if I take it, your sun crystal seed is useless to me. Do not worry that I will take it. Zhuo almost choked on air. He was shocked inside, and the next words the green-haired man almost caused his soul to depart. A person that has the power to seal the sun crystal seed is very strong, the green-haired male said lightly. Even with Zhuo's thick face, he felt unable to bear up with being exposed, but what he was shocked even more at was the power of the green-haired male. The other was even able to examine what was inside his ring. How great was his power! No wonder you were able to enter here, the green-haired male said to himself. Fate naturally occurs. Zhuo was confused and couldn't help but ask, Big brother, what are you talking about? The green-haired male suddenly raised his head and smiled slightly. Your luck is pretty good, come inside with me. Zhuo felt his vision blur, and then he was at a different place. When he looked around, his mouth instantly opened and could not close. Looking around, he saw endless dense forests. Tree crowns formed a vast ocean of trees. He was able to see ancient Yao beasts suddenly appear and disappear among the ocean of trees. Zhuo was on the crown of an enormous tree. What was strangest was that there were 7 suns on the sky above his head that were like 7 enormous fireballs hanging on the firmament. This is the Greenwood secret realm, the green-haired male said faintly. There was a transparent bubble in his hand, and inside it was a miniature tree ocean. Greenwood secret realm? Zhuo asked. The Sun tribe was one of the strongest tribes, and their temples were spread across the land. See the 7 suns above your head? They symbolize the status of this Shin temple. The highest-ranked Shin temple will have 10 suns. The green-haired male slowly said, the Shin temple is primarily fire-oriented, and so it has gold, wood, water, and earth realms positioned to guard the 4 cardinal directions of the temple. Each secret realm has a defender, and I am the defender for Greenwood secret realm. Zhuo gaped. I'm not some big brother, the green-haired male said with a bitter smile. Those that guard the secret realms are experts that the Sun tribe have captured from other tribes. I remember who I am now. I am the son of the Green Vine tribe, Qingling. The realm masters of the 3 other secret realms are also experts of other tribes. Zhuo was even more stunned. He finally seemed to understand a bit of how powerful the Sun tribe had been in the past. The Sun tribe has fallen, we will also die. Qingling had an expression of release. Zhuo jumped. Why is it like this? All of us had Jinji set into us. The Sun tribe has fallen, so theoretically, we should have died long ago. But the Shin temple was suddenly closed down in the past and was blocked off from the outside world. It also blocked off the power of the Jinji. Now that the Shin temple is going to open and see the light of day again, the power of the Jinji will not be blocked any longer. The green-haired male's tone was nonchalant. Seeing Zhuo's panicked expression, he comforted, this is a kind of release for us. The Shin temple has been closed off for so many years. Without the power of the totem, it is a fate worse than death when the Jinji causes a backlash every decade. He did not want to speak more of the topic and said, you have the sun crystal seed, so you should not have any problem inside the Shin temple if you do not go to places too dangerous. The Sun tribe had been dominant for a time, and there are countless treasures inside the Shin temple. Even though much has been destroyed, but there should be some things remaining, this is an opportunity for you. However, before that, you need Shin power. These words were like a basin of cold water that poured from head to toe. Zhuo's heart was cold. Why did it still need Shin power? Seeing the expression on Zhuo Mo's face was as though he was going to cry without tears, the green-haired male said with a smile, "You have the Sun Crystal Seed. Helping you will not betray the Jinji of the Shin Temple. I can help you think of a way with Shin power." Zhuo Mo's eyes instantly lit up and he hurriedly said, "What way?" Chapter 493, Qing Lin, Elder. Lu Shu's respectful voice came from outside the door. "Come in." The wooden door creaked open without any wind. Li Shu respectfully walked in and first bowed towards Elder Shen. "What?" Looking at Shu's face, "It seems that you are worried about something." Elder Shen asked Li Shu with a warm expression. Li Shu was an inner sect disciple and deeply liked by the sect leader, so even he had to give him some face. "I'm not afraid that Elder will laugh. But for some reason, this disciple feels slightly unconfident." Li Shu grimaced. He had only taken over this mission in the recent few years, but he knew more than Elder Shen. From the moment the location of the ruins had been divined, the sect had sent Lu Zhen and the others to set up Su Ling's sect. All the signs indicated that the sect wanted the Sun Shin Temple ruins. He finally learned later that there was a wondrous treasure inside the Sun Shin Temple ruins that was extremely important to the sect. However, he did not know what treasure it was. For this, the sect even sent out a Yuanying elder. In his experience during the many years he had been in the sect, the Yuanying elders were all in deep seclusion and only focused on cultivation. It was hard to even see their face. This was the first time he saw a Yuanying elder out on a mission. It was possible to see from this just how much importance the sect placed on this mission's success. If there was any misstep in the mission this time, he naturally would not escape the judgment of unable to carry out matters. This would be extremely disadvantageous for his future in the sect. The sect leader paid great attention to him, but in reality, there were many disciples like him. Elder Shin said with a smile, "A Shu does not need to worry." Before leaving, the sect leader made a special divination and did not see any sudden changes. As for the masked assassin, even though he has some small fame, but this old man has a slight grasp on the situation. The other two Yuanying have pretty good cultivation, but in other matters, they amount to just that. In his tone, he was extremely disdainful of the two Yuanying from Cloud Sijie. The worry on Lu Shu's face decreased greatly. The sect leader's godly divination had never been disproven before. Just yesterday, he had received the sect leader's paper crane. There was only gentle motivation on the paper crane, and nothing else. If there really was change, how could the sect leader not know? It seemed that he was really worrying too much. Elder is right, losing composure like this disciple needs more training, Li Shu said. Elder Shen was not concerned and said with a smile, "A Shu's personality is cautious." "Not bad, not bad." When this old man was the same age as a Shu, this one was even less skilled at keeping one's composure. There are 4 more days until the Shin Temple opens. A Shu should have a good rest in these days to be in the best condition. "Yes." Li Shu responded. The elder's tone was warm, but the meaning in the words was still for him to stop thinking nonsense. There should not be anything that would go wrong in the span of 4 days. "I heard you failed," a middle-aged person with a white face and no beard said with a smile, "That is rare. If this spreads, this person might become famous." In front of him, the masked assassin was wordless like a wooden puppet and the pale white mask was frightening to look at. "Why did you think of attacking this person? Did you discover something?" the middle-aged male asked with curiously. He had jumped in fright when he received the news. He and the masked assassin had worked together for a long time and he understood the other well. The masked assassin walked in the darkness but was not a murderous person. Other than the targets of assassination, he almost never acted against other people. He had actually attacked a complete stranger. How could he not be shocked? What was even more shocking was that he had failed. The middle-aged male's first response when he heard this was, "Impossible." Even when the topic had heated up later on, he still did not believe it until now. The response of the masked assassin proved the truth. Intuition, the masked assassin treated words as though they were worth gold and gave the one-word answer. Intuition. The middle-aged male was shocked. He had thought of countless possibilities, but this was not among them. He will affect my target. The masked assassin's voice was hoarse and unpleasant to hear, like the sound of sandpaper rubbing. Affect your target? The middle-aged male was astonished. But as one who was familiar with the other, he instantly understood what the other meant. You mean that you intuitively feel that he would affect our matter? Yes, the masked assassin responded. The middle-aged male became silent. He knew that the masked assassin had many curious qualities. This was also one of the reasons he never failed. The masked assassin's intuition felt that the other would affect their target. This caused the middle-aged person to feel it was fantastical. But for some reason, the middle-aged male believed slightly in it. Should we think of a way to kill him? The middle-aged male inquired. Formation is strong, the masked assassin said. Then what? The middle-aged male asked. Don't know. The middle-aged male was speechless. This method is very simple, it is applying the sun crystal seed to your body, Qing Lin explained. This thing is useful. Zuo took out the sun crystal seed. Since the other had found it, there was no reason to keep hiding it. Your power is not enough, and cannot take in the sun crystal seed. The person who sealed the sun crystal seed must also have thought this, Qing Lin continued, but he probably would not have thought that you would come across a Sun Shin temple. Zuo's eyes were perked up in fear of missing a word. The sun crystal seed is the seed of the Sun tribe's totem and used to nurture the totem warriors of their tribe. The totem warriors were strong, but they also had great constraints. Since the Sun tribe is gone now, and so is the belief of the tribe members, there is no totem power, and you cannot become a totem warrior. Zuo was instantly greatly disappointed. After all this stuff had lost its effect. Seeing the disappointment on Zuo's face, Qing Ling couldn't help smiling. You may not be able to become a totem warrior, but the sun crystal seed itself is a rare and precious treasure in our world. It naturally has its own extraordinary properties. Do you know how the sun crystal seed forms? Zuo finally became spirited again. How does it form? Each generation of totem warriors from the Sun tribe would try all they can to go to those primitive worlds, or places of chaos, to search for unformed suns. They would first seal them into crystals, and then forge them day and night using the power of belief. 50 years later, it would become a sun crystal seed. Zuo gaped on hearing this. An unformed sun. Motherfucker, so GE is holding a little sun. Each sun crystal seed is a priceless treasure. If the Sun tribe did not fall and die out, how could this sun crystal seed end up in the hands of someone else? Speaking of this, Qing Lin became slightly emotional. He shook his head and then said, your luck is pretty good to be able to encounter such an object, and also a person that could seal this object. Now you have also encountered a Sun Shin temple that has not disappeared. Maybe there really is fate. Seeing Zuo's shocked face, Qing Lin grinned. He had a pretty good feeling about Zuo. This person seemed slippery of the tongue and slightly cunning, but still had a pure heart. The belief power in this sun crystal seed probably has dissipated. If another 10,000 years passes, it may form another sun. In the future, you have to remember not to reveal the fact you possess the sun crystal seed to prevent a calamity from falling on you. Hearing this, Zuo nodded furiously. In the past, he only knew that this object was probably extraordinary, but he did not know how this was useful. After learning this, he finally understood how valuable of a gift the strange corpse had given him. Originally, the sun crystal seed needs to be worshipped at the sacrificial altar before it can be absorbed. But the sacrificial altar in the Shin temple has been abandoned for a long time. So we have to use a stupid method. As Qing Lin spoke, a jade-like water droplet suddenly condensed at his fingertip as he gently poked Zuo's forehead. Boom! Zuo felt a coolness spread from his brow and roll downwards. His entire body was unspeakably comfortable, and his mouth and nose was filled with the scent of fresh flora. This green vine mystical water is your big brother's meeting gift to you, Qing Lin said with a smile. His face was slightly pale. It is very lacking compared to the sun crystal seed, don't look down at it. Zhuo was very moved. His nose became sore as he made a deep bow and said sincerely, "Big brother." Qing Lin held him up and had a happy expression. "After muddling tens of thousands of years, I have no regrets in this life to encounter a brother again." He then said, "This drop of green vine mystical water was a harvest from an old vine that was 10,000 years old. If brother can absorb it well, it will be of great benefit." Zhuo could only nod dumbly. He suddenly took out a pile of treasures he usually treasured as though they were his life and said, "Big brother, take a look. If there is something useful, please take it." "Oh, brother has many good things," Qing Lin said with a smile as he flipped through. "This broken arrow is probably the weapon of the totem warrior from the Archer tribe. This broken bell should be the greatest treasure of the Eastern Water tribe and is called the Celestial Bell. This black rock is the Nether Ghost core, the greatest treasure of the Nether Ghost tribe. It is a pity that this brother can just barely recognize them and I do not know how to use them. This is all things I picked up from the sealed extinction battlefield. My friends said that is the place many warriors died," Zhuo said. These treasures had all been obtained when Zhuo had followed the strange corpse out of the sealed extinction battlefield. They had gone through many places of death similar to the gold crystal sand sea. The strange corpse didn't have much interest in these objects and gave them all to Zhuo, so that is the case. Qing Lin nodded. The sealed extinction battlefield, as expected of the Battle of Sealed Extinction. The grave of so many warriors. With a long sigh, Qing Lin pushed the objects in front of Zhuo. "This brother accepts brother's good intentions, but I will not be able to use these things. Brother, keep them on you and remember to not easily show them to others." Zhuo instantly said, "Big brother, pick a few. There really is no use." Qing Lin pushed the objects back in front of Zhuo and said, "This brother does have something to request." "What?" "Big brother, say it." Zhuo said unhesitatingly. "If brother has free time in the future, can you go to this place to look? There may be descendants of mine here. If they are lucky and are still alive, brother, please help look after them for me." Qing Lin pointed again and Zhuo felt a Jia map appear in his mind. Seas turned to mulberry fields, everything probably has changed. Shitty, do not deliberately go looking. If you encounter them, just giving them a helping hand and it is enough, Qing Lin said. No problem. Zhuo nodded heavily. He decided inside that he would definitely go to this place to search. Qing Lin smiled slightly and reached out a hand. Brother, lend the sun crystal seed to me for use. Zhuo hurriedly gave the sun crystal seed to Qing Lin's hand. At this time, a bright green light suddenly came from Qing Lin's hand and wrapped around the sun crystal seed, the other end of the light entangling around Zhuo. Chapter 494, Awaken. The bright green light was tender and glistening as its threads burrowed into the sun crystal seed. The dim sun crystal seed started to violently shake as though there was an ancient beast howling within it. Qing Lin's expression was grave, his black eyes extremely bright like the stars in the night sky. His green hair moved despite the lack of wind and floated freely. The sun crystal seed suddenly released a blinding light. Countless sharp golden energies suddenly shot out like swords. The blinding red light flowed out of the sun crystal seed following the green light and into Zhuo's body. Zhuo suddenly felt his mind explode. Countless burning flows that were like lava charged into his mind. A heart-tearing pain came from the bottom of his soul. He didn't even have time to wail before he lost consciousness. At the other end of the green light, Zhuo's eyes were tightly closed, and clearly had fainted. His body floated uncontrollably in the air. The blinding red light shrouded Zhuo. It quickly found an opening and burrowed in through Zhuo's mouth and nose. This burst of red light came extremely quickly. In a blink, it burrowed completely into Zhuo's body. Zhuo's hair suddenly started burning. Flames shot out of Zhuo's skin and in a blink, he became a person of fire. At this time, a thread of water suddenly rose from Zhuo's dantian to combat the flames. It was the green vine mystical water that Qing Lin had gifted Zhuo Mo. The unordinary red light rampaged in Zhuo Mo's body and had suddenly encountered an enemy. But this drop of mystical water was not ordinary either. Qing Lin had harvested it from a 10,000-year-old vine. After being nurtured for tens of thousands of years, it was extremely pure. The sun crystal seed was domineering, but since its owner had died tens of thousands of years ago, it was not maintained and was lacking compared to in its past. With the improvement on one side and the degeneration on the other, the two were evenly matched at the moment. The sun crystal seed was forged from the embryo of a sun, and was naturally domineering. Even if it had been tens of thousands of years, and it was greatly damaged, this dominance had not disappeared. Encountering a strong enemy, its dominance was stimulated and its fiery presence was released. The fire on Zhuo Mo's body rose and shot up. A high-temperature shockwave of air swept outwards with Zhuo Mo as the center. The enormous tree under their feet turned to dust. Everywhere the wave of air passed, the flora turned to dust and the ground started to melt. As expected of the sun crystal seed. Qing Lin laughed lightly. Looking at Zhuo Mo's face, his thoughts suddenly floated away and those distant and blurry memories seemed to gradually become clear in front of him as though they were swept of dust. Brother. A young and unfamiliar face became clear in his mind. The distant emotions instantly filled his heart. He turned his face and gazed at Zhuo Mo's unconscious face. That young and unfamiliar face in his heart seemed to gradually merge with Zhuo Mo's face. His heart that had not moved for thousands of years seemed to be plucked. He smiled. He stretched out his right arm and pointed at the sky. A shining dot of light suddenly appeared in the sky like a star lighting up. A slender and straight golden pillar shot down, from the distant horizon, through the endless void of the firmament above their heads, with the glory of tens of thousands of years. It shot rapidly towards the ground and the ray of light accurately struck the finger Qing Lin had raised up. Boom! A light sound that shook the surroundings. Qing Lin's body shook as though he was struck by lightning. A vast and writhing power suddenly expanded with him as the center. Pia pia pia. The enormous trees that were dozens of zhang thick were easily cut down as though they were slender rods. The wave of air was destructive and everywhere it passed, the ground rippled and trees flew. All of Greenwood's secret realm was violently shuddering. Under the pure golden ray of light, Qing Lin's eyes flashed with an unspeakable light like a burning star. That free smile carried contentment and warmth. He did not tell Zhuo Mo that he was the only defender of the four realms that had preserved his intelligence. The other three people's minds had been lost through the thousands of years, and became monsters that only had instinct and murderous intent. In the entire Shin Temple, he was the only one that had clarity of mind. The loneliness of tens of thousands of years, how long it was. He did not tell Zhuo Mo when the Sun Shin Temple finished opening, the guardians of the realm like him would burn like the suns at the end of their lives, burning as never before, burning away their life. He also did not tell Zhuo Mo that in these tens of thousands of years, he had gone into every corner of the Shin Temple. The Shin Temple that only had him left meant that he could use a portion of the power of the Shin Temple. Maybe this was fate. He could not stop the Shin Temple from activating. But this was also fate that he encountered a brother. Tens of thousands of years, it was long enough. Under the gold light, he smiled slightly. The Shin Temple violently trembled, rocks rolling on the abandoned sacrificial altar. The Shin scripts that were covered in dust and cobwebs lit up. The serene light started to pulse as well, quickly spreading to every corner of the Shin Temple. The entire Shin Temple started to tremble. After sleeping for tens of thousands of years, the power that once represented the greatest glory of an era was woken from its deep slumber. Just preparing to rest, Li Shu suddenly felt the ground under his feet tremble and couldn't help but pause. Earthquake? Abruptly, he detected a peerlessly dominant presence suddenly explode nearby. This presence was absolutely dominant, the light like the sun in the middle of the day such that people were unable to face it directly. Li Shu was astounded and hurried out of the room. When he charged out of the room, the shocking scene in front of him stunned him completely. Don't know, the middle-aged man said urgently, "This time, I have spent a great price to get this piece of information. If I cannot find that treasure, it would be a great loss." The masked assassin sat woodenly without a word. The middle-aged male was impatient, but he didn't dare to direct his anger at the masked assassin. He had a pained expression. He had originally thought that with the masked assassin present, it would be an easy task, but this group of people with unknown origins popped up out of nowhere. He could not let it go. At this time, the ground suddenly shuddered. What sort of place is this? They have earthquakes. In a bad mood, the middle-aged male swore. Suddenly, a peerlessly domineering presence exploded without warning. The pressure brought with the terrifying power was like an enormous stone on everyone's chests, pushing them down uncomfortably. The middle-aged male was greatly shocked. He was just going to ask the masked assassin when he found that the masked assassin had already disappeared. He hurriedly charged out of the room. When he saw the figure of the masked assassin, he was slightly reassured. When he directed his gaze towards the direction the power had erupted from, he seemed to be struck by lightning and stunned where he stood. The enormous light pillar that was 150 li in radius was continuously shrinking. Everyone present had keen eyes, and instantly found it was continuously contracting. No, it was compressing. The golden light was becoming more condensed with every moment and even denser. The golden light which had been pure became dark gold after being compressed. The ground was trembling, violently trembling, and the pebbles continuously trembled and were thrown about as if they were jumping. A deep and muffled sound came from the deep inside earth as though there was a monster howling underneath. Crack, half of a mountain range suddenly crumbled. Some shoujo with low cultivation were unable to escape in time and buried alive. The shoujo all flew into the sky with terror on their faces. In the air, they could see more clearly. The hard ground was like mud at this time, as though there was an invisible hand that was easily molding it. Everyone's already ugly expressions became even whiter. In front of such worldly power, their power was so minuscule and insignificant. Li Shu was disheveled as he flew next to Elder Shen. "Elder, something definitely is happening in the Shen Hall," Elder Shen said in a deep voice. He was also astounded inside, but he showed calmness on the outside. Do not worry, the Sun tribe had flourished for a time. It would be unusual if there wasn't any disturbance when their Shin temple opened. Hearing this, Li Shu was slightly reassured. He couldn't help but praise, "Elder is right. This presence is intimidating." Elder Shin snorted coldly, "Intimidating? The Sun tribe has died out long ago, and even our sect's great formation might also have such presence. Do not be frightened by these outdated and rotten powers. This disciple understands," Li Shu said hurriedly. It seemed that his words had caused Elder to be displeased. He hurriedly changed the topic. "Elder, do you think that someone has entered ahead of everyone?" "Impossible." Elder Shin shook his head. The Sun tribe is extremely closed off to outsiders, and thought of the world to be conquered by them. How can their Shin temple allow others to enter? Unless the other is also of the Sun tribe. But this is basically impossible. After the Battle of Sealed Extinction, all the warriors of the Sun tribe fell, and they were attacked by the other tribes, and all died out. All of their Shin temples were destroyed. This Shin temple was able to avoid that fate because it is very remote and few people knew of it. The other was the head priest at the time saw the situation and closed the Shin temple from the inside world and sank it into the ground. Who can live for thousands of years? Li Shu was intoxicated on the words. With Elder's few words, he depicted a vast ancient battle. Suddenly, Elder Shin stopped, his gaze focusing tightly on the pillar of light. The light pillar was compressed into 10 li, 15 times smaller than before. It wasn't like a pillar of light now, but a dark crimson and gold pillar that seemed tangible. Suddenly, the lower end of the pillar started to disappear. No, it wasn't disappearing, it was shrinking upwards. Those who had keen eyes instantly exclaimed, "It is shrinking inwards." Those that were alerted looked closely. As said, the upper end of the pillar was also shrinking towards the middle at an astounding rate. The scene was extremely strange. It was like a golden rod that had two ends that were shrinking back towards the middle and quickly became short. Fantastical. Everyone knew that this gold pillar wasn't something substantial but a pillar of light. How could a pillar of light shrink from both ends? What was going on? The following scene caused everyone to lose the ability of speech. Chapter 495, Intuition. The golden pillar that connected the earth and sky was shrinking inwards at a visible rate. The pillar of light grew increasingly shorter, and the color of the gold pillar became increasingly dark, the blinding golden light became a dark crimson gold. The entire process continued for almost 15 minutes and the pillar finally shrank into a golden ball, a dark red gold sun hung in the dark sky. All of Cloud CGS suddenly became silent. Sun Shin Temple, Li Shu looked at the sky and murmured. They were close and the heat made it seem as though they were in a cauldron. He could feel the intimidating presence of the ball of light. Waves of hot air were continuously released from the ball of light. The temperature of the air quickly rose and became burning hot. Everything within his field of view started to warp. The grass on the ground quickly withered at a visible rate, even the endless cloud sea under their feet was swept clean by the burning air and they were able to see an exposed corner of the Sun Shin Temple. A Shin Temple from tens of thousands of years ago, after being whittled away by time, it still had such terrifying presence. How great would it have been at its peak? At this moment, Li Shu's thoughts wandered. Elder Shin did not speak and a shocked expression was also on his face. His cultivation was yuanying and he could squeeze into the ranks of the higher classes in the entire four-realm heaven. His knowledge was much greater than Li Shu, and with that, he was able to understand what the scene in front of them represented better than Li Shu. Yearning and heat flashed across his eyes. Beside the two people, Lu Zhen and the others gaped as they looked in disbelief at the enormous dark red sun in the sky. They were dumbstruck. Suddenly, Elder Shin said gravely, "You will need to prepare. The movement from the Sun Shin Temple has been so great this time, people should have guessed that it is not long before it opens. At that time, a battle will be unavoidable." Elder Shin's words pulled Li Shu and the others back to reality. They hurriedly said together, "Yes." Elder Shin looked deeply at the corner of the Sun Shin Temple that was exposed and then disappeared. Li Shu's gaze unconsciously moved back to the dark gold and red sun. Recovered, he couldn't help but frown. They only learned the time of the activation through divination but hadn't expected that the Sun Shin Tribble would make such noise before it activated. This undoubtedly increased the difficulty. No matter if it was him, or Elder Shin, they would never think that the scene in front of them had nothing to do at all with the activation of the Shin Temple. It was due to certain person getting in first. Beautiful. So beautiful. The middle-aged male looked intoxicatedly at the ball of light that seemed like a sun in the sky. The masked assassin did not speak. That pale white and unusual mask seemed to be dyed a dark crimson gold. "Ah, it is troublesome now," the middle-aged male suddenly exclaimed. "Such a great spectacle, everyone will know that the Shin Temple is going to open. It's over. I had originally planned for us to sneak in before everyone else reacts, and get the thing. There's nothing to do now." The masked assassin did not speak. The middle-aged male's attitude seemed grievous as he nattered on. The masked assassin suddenly interrupted him, "There's people. There's people." The middle-aged male stilled and suddenly reacted. A light flashed across his eyes. "You are saying there's people inside the temple? Someone got in. Damn it." The middle-aged male held his head with both hands and couldn't help but curse, "Bastard." But he quickly thought of something and the anger on his face dissipated. He said smugly, "Ha! Impossible. The defenses of the Shin Temple are so strong that it is not something a person can damage. Unless it is a descendant of the Sun Tribe, no one can break through this layer of protection. Ha! I got someone to divine before. The Sun Tribe has died out, not even a hair is left." The masked assassin did not argue and was silent. Seeing this, the middle-aged person showed a hesitant expression. He knew the masked assassin was not one to speak nonsense and couldn't help but inquire, "How do you know that there are people inside?" Like a puppet, the masked assassin indifferently spat out a word, "Intuition." The middle-aged male felt a cloud move over his head. The damned intuition. This person's intuition had always been very accurate. Zhuo slowly woke up. He found he was leaning on the stone wall and everything was as before he fell asleep. Had he just had a dream? Zhuo shook his head. Everything that happened in the dream was so clear. He hesitated and then started to inspect his body. The green vine mystical water was silently curled up in his body like a tamed pet. At some unknown time, a little sun appeared in his dantian. The sun was very small, the light released threads of warmth. The warmth followed into his channels and to every part of his body. His entire body was warm and felt unspeakably comfortable. The three powers that had been tangled up and hard to pick apart in his body had completely merged together and had become a power that he was unfamiliar with. A thought imprint that contained countless information caused Zhuo to understand everything. Uncontrollably, 2 lines of hot tears spilled from Zhuo's eyes. Big brother Qinglin. That wasn't a dream. Zhuo wiped away his tears, knelt on the ground and kowtowed gravely 3 times towards the rock wall. Zhuo was not too sorrowful, not because he was used to death in this chaotic state of the world but because in the thought imprint that Big Brother Qinglin had left behind, it was filled with the emotional sentiments of being released. This kind of ending was one that Big Brother Qinglin wanted, and what he chose. What Zhuo could do was finish Big Brother's last wish. He decided inside that no matter what, he would go and visit Big Brother's homeland. In the sea of consciousness, Pu Yao and Wei were silent. A moment later, Wei said, "The Green Vine tribe is also a very powerful tribe in the history records. This Qinglin's Shen power is immeasurable. He probably was also a great warrior in the past. I hadn't expected that he would be imprisoned in the Shen temple for tens of thousands of years." Pu Yao had once been imprisoned in the Yao subduing tower for thousands of years as well and understood the hopelessness. To be able to keep his sanity after being imprisoned for tens of thousands of years in a closed-off Shen temple, even Pu Yao who usually had his nose in the sky couldn't help but feel great admiration. No matter how powerful one was, they could not stop the power of time. Those experts that were imprisoned in the Jinji and illusory realms were not killed by the Jinji or illusions, but by the power of time. Loneliness and hopelessness were the most effective emotions to form mental demons. Once the mental demons were born, one's mind would gradually be corroded by the demons and the person would become an inhuman monster. Wei suddenly smiled after reflecting. This boy's fortune is plentiful. Our contribution. Pu Yao unashamedly claimed the achievement as his own. If Zhuo was here, he would be jumping in fury. Reasonable. Wei expressed deep agreement but his tone turned. But it is not easy to say if this is good fortune or calamity. Oh. Pu Yao's bloody pupil narrowed and the flame around his body stilled. Shen power might have disappeared for a long time, but there would probably be people who would still recognize it. Wei continued, "Look at what he has, Green Vine mystical water and Sun crystal seed are 2 ultimate treasures. If you or I encountered them, we probably could not avoid thinking of taking them. How about others? Any large sect would be moved." A bloody light flashed through Pu Yao's bloody pupil as he said faintly, "Kill them. Is it so easy to kill? You and I are like this now, we cannot directly act." Wei said with a sigh. Pu Yao smirked coldly. "You underestimate this boy. Don't look at his unmotivated state, if he really wants to, humph. Wei said with a smile, "You are right, the boy usually muddles through things but can stand up at the crucial time. He is also very slippery. Trying to benefit from him is not very easy. You don't need to worry for him." Pu Yao said unconcernedly. His tone then changed. "Are you interested in Shen power?" Wei gave a smile, "Of course. Go study it. Fits my intentions perfectly." The two exchanged a look. The thought imprint that Big Brother Qing Lin left contained many pieces of information. He had used the entire power of the Sun Shin Temple to help Zhuemo cultivate to Shin power and also unsealed a thread of the seal on the Sun Crystal Seed so that Zhuemo could use its power, yet it would not be able to harm Zhuemo. This could not count as absorbing the Sun Crystal Seed, but it was the limit of what Qing Lin could do. Other than this, Qing Lin also passed on how to process the Green Vine mystical water, and how to use it. He also left behind the Green Vine technique of the Green Vine tribe to Zhuemo. Qing Lin did however say that Zhuemo was not suited to cultivating this technique and it could only function as a reference. Of all this, what was most important to Zhuemo was the detailed introduction to the Sun Shin Temple, how to enter the Sun Shin Temple, how to solve its formations, and where the talismans were. With the aid of the Sun Shin Temple's power, Zhuemo's three powers merged into one and became Shin power. Adding on the influences from the Sun Crystal Seed, his Shin power had a clear leaning, and was very suited to cultivating the methods of the Sun tribe. Qing Lin told Zhuemo he had to find the techniques of the Sun tribe and gave out several hidden places where the Sun tribe methods could be stored. After digesting all this information, Zhuemo stood up again. The Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and Mo physique in his body had completely disappeared and became a strange power. Was this Shin power? Zhuemo curiously inspected this completely unique power. Compared to Ling power, spiritual consciousness, and the Mo physique, Shin power was completely different. No matter if it was Ling power, spiritual consciousness, or the Mo physique, they had their unique circulation pathways. Ling power traveled through channels, the consciousness centered at the brow, and the Mo physique moved through sinew and flesh. Shin power was completely different. It seemed completely aimless, burrowing randomly through Zhuemo body. The feeling that Shin power gave Zhuemo was a muddle. Its use was not as clear as the three powers. It might have been that he was too unfamiliar with it that Zhuemo felt that Shin power was very difficult to control and could not be used as he pleased with the three powers. Even the weakest of his three powers, Ling power, was much easier to control than Shin power. Chaotic, unclear, hard to grasp, these were what Zhuemo felt about Shin power. This caused him to feel very awkward. No one liked power that was unclear and uncontrolled. There was this phrase that was passed among Shouja. The strength of a Shouja was not how much power he possessed but how much power he could control. Zhuemo was a faithful follower of this view. This new situation caused him to feel unusually awkward. Chapter 496, Shin Technique. Zhuemo did not immediately enter the Sun Shin Temple. It would be rare for him to rashly do something even when there was a pile of talismans and jingsha in front of him. In his view, the most unprofitable business in the world would be to lose his little life. He needed time to digest the thought imprint that Big Brother Qing Lin had left him and the strange Shin power in his body. With the three powers having disappeared, Shin power became the only power that he could rely on. If he entered the temple with a muddled head, he was sure that even his bones wouldn't survive. The Sun Shin Temple was not a peaceful garden. It was the exact opposite, and full of danger. Even if he had the thought imprint that Big Brother Qing Lin left him, it could not guarantee his safety. Zhuemo focused his attention on the Shin power and quickly had a new discovery. There was a faint layer of essence around his body. It was like a mist that shrouded around Zhuemo. Zhuemo couldn't help but think of the space shield that Ling beasts had. This thing seemed slightly like the space shield. Starting from 4th grade, the Yao beasts would have a space shield around their body. This was a sign that the Yao beast had left behind the lowest grades. Had he become something similar to Yao beasts? Zhuemo muttered inside. The essence that was around Zhuemo was not under Zhuemo's control. No matter how Zhuemo tried to control them, they were unaffected. However, they were not useless. Zhuemo could clearly feel every change in the surroundings. This was not the same as the perception granted through the use of consciousness. In the area that the consciousness covered, Zhuemo could detect the flow of energy, such as Ling power and the Mo physique. But everything within the range of this space shield, even if it was a speck of dust, would register into Zhuemo's mind. Zuemo sensitively detected the difference between the two, and he had a feeling that he could possibly control this space shield. This feeling caused him to become extremely excited. The space shield was a bonus to his new Shin power, and the surprises that Shin power gave Zuemo were even greater. Power. Absolute power. The power of Shin power far surpassed any of the three powers. Zuemo was still unable to use Shin power, but even so, the magnitude of strength that the Shin power had caused Zuemo to become excited. When he casually punched the round wall, there was no loud bang, no flying rocks or dirt. Zuemo's right fist seemed to become deeply embedded in the rock like a knife entering tofu. He pulled out his fist and a deep fist-sized hole was left in the rock. 1 zhang. 1 complete zhang deep. If one could cut open the rock, they would find a straight and deep hole that was the diameter of a fist that extended 1 zhang deep. Zuemo inhaled sharply and then could not disguise the joy on his face. This punch looked normal, but it had an unusual profoundness. The depth of 1 zhang was enough to show how powerful this one punch was, enough to rival flying swords. The ruler straight deep hole that went from start to finish meant that the force of this punch was concentrated at one point and had not dissipated at all. Zuemo knew just how frightening this was. Even with the great Daimo physique, he was unable to do this. He looked at his hands and then paused. White, smooth, slender, the palms seemed feminine. Were these his palms? No way. Zuemo was slightly stunned. He remembered very well that his palms in the past had seemed to be forged from metal and shone with a metallic sheen. These hands were too feminine. It wasn't just that the skin had changed, but his entire hand was a size smaller than before. Zuemo was slightly discontent. In comparison, he liked his previous hands that seemed broad, full of power and masculine. Had the Shin power also changed his appearance? Thinking about this, Zuemo shook and hurriedly took out a gold crystal broadsword from the ring. Using the mirror-smooth surface, he looked at himself. He first sighed in relief, but then his brow creased. His features had not changed greatly, but his figure was much thinner than before. In the past, his body had been balanced, but it gave people the feeling of power due to cultivating the great Daimo physique. Right now, that powerful presence had disappeared, and he was slightly delicate. Yes, delicate. Zuemo's mood instantly turned bad. Gu hates little white faces the most. Actually, from the perspective of appearances, Zuemo only became more refined. This did not make him look uglier and gave him a gentlemanly presence. Of course, that was only before Zuemo spoke. He was a qualified ruffian, an exceptional gangster, but definitely not a well-behaved youth. No matter how discontent Zuemo was, he could not control the changes of his body. Did the great ones of the ancient era like this style? Zuemo discontently asked the great ones of the Sun Shin Temple, but he decided to not waste time on this painful question. So feminine. There were countless talismans waiting in the Shin Temple for him. Zuemo instantly threw the question of his appearance to the back of his mind, focused and started to explore his Shin power. With this search, he found another unusual occurrence. The soul-setting divine light had burrowed into the Shin power. Zuemo was slightly shocked, but he wasn't too nervous. The soul-setting divine light had just been a thread and was pitifully small. It was the same as Shin power, and did not listen to his commands. These two were of the same streak. Once he decided to study something, Zuemo would usually quickly enter a focused state. He used all the methods he knew of to experiment with Shin power and gradually understood some of the peculiarities. For example, he found if he absorbed Ling power, the Ling power would be rapidly swallowed by the Shin power. If he cultivated the Mo physique, it would be the same result. The Shin power would actively absorb power from his body. This was also why his present body looked slightly thin. What was most exciting was that he found he could control Ling power. Zuemo found the explanation from the greenvine technique. Greenvine was the cultivation technique of the greenvine tribe and completely opposite to the sun tribe. However, it also cultivated Shin power, so some basic techniques were not very different. The control of Shin power was extremely complex. Even with basic techniques, it had stringent demands of body, essence and consciousness. After studying a few basic techniques, a strange feeling grew. Body, essence, consciousness, wasn't that the techniques to control the three powers? Suemo suddenly realized. He didn't know what Shin power was, but Shin power was definitely the product of his three powers being merged together. So naturally, how it would be controlled would be using the control techniques of the three powers at the same time. Thinking this through, Suemo was very motivated. However, he quickly found the difficulty in doing this was very high. In other words, he had to channel his Mo skills, spells, and Yao arts at the same time, and the three had to reach a perfect balance melding together before he could control Shin power. It was too difficult. In just moments, Mo was soaked in sweat. Without the support of the Mo physique, he had returned to his previous weak little body, and his endurance could not be said to be good. According to the demands on Greenvine, Mo clumsily twisted his body like a drunkard, his steps stumbling strangely as he stammered. Greenvine's luminous flower, serene moon a crescent, mountains tall waters clear, harmonious and still, ordered and regular, his eyes were wide as he tried to draw out a strange shape in his mind that was similar to Yao arts. Before he could finish drawing it out, his legs softened. Suemo was unable to control himself and landed on his behind on the ground. Pant pant pant. Suemo furiously gasped, his eyes wide. After resting for a full half hour, he finally recovered and his eyes became light again. He finally knew why the use of Shin power disappeared. Such a complex and hard-to-learn thing, it would be strange if it wasn't eliminated. He really could not imagine how those ancient great ones had managed to produce something this complex. He did not doubt that the appearance and rise of the three powers was mostly because the people could not cultivate Shin power, so they divided Shin power into three parts. Since they could not cultivate all of it, they would lower the difficulty and only cultivate one of them. Yet what made him want to cry was that the three powers in his body had all become Shin power, and the Shin power automatically consumed other powers. This meant that even if he started cultivating the three powers again, he could not produce any results. Damn it! Suemo's face was black. The Shin technique he had just practiced was called Green Flower, and was one of the basic moves in Greenvine. Supposedly, children around age 10 were able to cultivate it. 10 years old. Suemo gritted his teeth and he flipped through the Greenvine technique to search for easier content. Every type of Shin technique would contain content in three areas: divination dance, command, and heavenly sacrifice. Divination dance was an extremely unique language based on limb movements. Not understanding it, Suemo viewed it as dancing around madly. Command meant orders, curses and acts. Heavenly sacrifice was to communicate with the world. Only when the three were in perfect sync could a Shin technique be cast. At long last, his efforts did not fail him. In the last subordinate record, Suemo found the simplest Shin technique, light finger. Suemo chose it for a very simple reason, because its divination dance only required dancing of the fingers. There was nothing else more suited for Suemo because he had not forgotten his practiced finger motions. As expected, Suemo, who had the foundation of finger motions, could quickly finish the entire divination dance smoothly. Of course, it really was simple, and only had 3 movements. This caused Suemo's confidence to grow. The command was very simple, only 1 word. The hardest was the heavenly sacrifice. Suemo took 2 whole hours to familiarize himself. Yet Suemo quickly found that even if he was familiar with all 3 parts, it was not so simple for them to work together. Losing one or the other would occasionally occur, and the 3 were unable to reach a perfect meld. Suemo was not demotivated. Failure was common to him. He repeatedly practiced. His sweat flowed down his forehead and his neck. His terrible endurance made him feel the exhaustion he had not felt for a long time, but he gritted his teeth and persisted. His fingers moved rapidly and then pointed at the rock nearby as he shouted, "Break!" His eyes widened and the heavenly sacrifice was finished in an instant. The Shin power in his body suddenly moved. Bam! A muffled sound. Zhuo stilled. Success. Had he succeeded? When his gaze moved towards the place that had just made the sound, his eyes widened and he was stunned where he stood. A rock hole with a diameter of 1 zhang was in front of him. Zhuo unconsciously walked towards the rock hole. The mouth was even bigger than he was tall and dazed him. The walls of the hole was smooth as though they were carved with a knife. The inside was completely dark and Zhuo walked in as though he was possessed. 1 zhang, 2 zhang, 3 zhang. 20 zhang, the hole was 20 zhang deep. Chapter 497, Activation of the Shin Temple. It was impossible to describe the shock Zhuo was feeling. The enormous rock hole that seemed to have been carved with a knife was completely smooth. It surpassed everything that Zhuo knew. Before this, Zhuo had felt that he was able to understand this power, yet he found that its profoundness was much deeper and advanced than he had imagined. At this time, Zhuo suddenly felt his body shake. Pia, something inside his body seemed to explode. A familiar feeling returned to his body. Zhuo's eyes widened and an expression of disbelief came onto his face. The exhaustion in his body swept away. He dazedly raised his arm. The familiar Great Damo physique had returned to his body. His mind moved. As well, his consciousness and Ling power had returned to normal. Was it? A daring idea rose in his mind. The shock on Zhuo's face uncontrollably turned to joy. Excited, Zhuo instantly started to experiment. He quickly proved what he had guessed. For some unknown reason, his Shin power could revert back to the 3 powers and the 3 powers could merge to become Shin power. What was even more joyous was that he could control this change. He could not resist and roared with laughter. The laughter echoed in the cave and even disturbed the hardship guards that were standing guard outside. However, they did not rashly charge in. Even though they did not know what was making Darren so happy, but it definitely was something good. When he had achieved Shin power before, Zhuo had not been this happy. Shin power was unrivaled in its power, but he was more familiar with the 3 powers, and could not help but feel disappointed at their loss. Now that he discovered that the 3 powers and Shin power could freely transform into each other, the last bit of hesitation disappeared. If he wanted to use Shin power, he would use Shin power. If he wanted to use the 3 powers, he would use the 3 powers. However, the 3 powers that had been deconstructed were slightly changed. His Mo physique and consciousness had decreased with different magnitudes, especially his Mo physique, which had weakened the most. The opposite had happened with his Ling power, which had increased greatly. The 3 powers had become equal. This change did not disappoint Zhuo, rather he felt overjoyed. The problem of his Ling power was one of the problems he had had a headache about. He was living in the Shoujo world. If he used the Mo physique and Yao arts every day, and someone with good eyes detected it, then it would be great trouble. Ling power was good, it was safe. As for spells he could use, that wasn't a problem. They had won many spells over the course of their battles. As a last resort, he could even go to Pu Yao and nag and bother him. He would eventually get one. He felt the thick Ling power inside his body. He was just a line away from Jin Dan, and the feeling of clarity of his mind made him greatly intoxicated. Thinking about the Shin power of just now, he felt that the 3 powers were more enjoyable. However, now with Shin power, he had another ultimate technique to protect himself. Who would scorn themselves for having more techniques? Even more, it was a Shin technique. Zhuo seemed to have been struck dizzy by Jingshi that fell from the sky. After experiencing for a while, Zhuo once again went back into his cultivation. He had to familiarize himself with the transformation between the 3 powers and Shin power. This was a killing move, an ultimate move. As he practiced, he suddenly pondered a question. When Shin power turned to the 3 powers that were obtained were extremely equal. Since that was the case, couldn't he cultivate Ling power through cultivating the Mo physique? Once this daring idea jumped into his mind, he became alert. If he could really do it, then it really was very profitable. The three powers were each a system unto themselves and were strongly separated. There were many reasons that Zhuo Mo's Ling power was a shortcoming. Pu Yao's and Wei's influences caused Zhuo Mo to cultivate Yao arts and the Mo physique, but the most important cause was that his talent at cultivating Ling power was far less than his talent in the Mo physique and Yao arts. Wei Sheng was the opposite and was a genius at cultivating Ling power. The three powers could merge and form Shen power. The Shen power could transform and divide equally into the three powers. Didn't that mean that Zhuo Mo did not have any cultivation shortcomings? Zhuo Mo tried it and as expected, his idea was realized. However, he quickly calmed down. This matter had advantages and disadvantages. Even though he did not have any cultivation shortcomings, but if he wanted to improve the same amount as other people, the gains he needed to advance in cultivating was 3 times that of other people. This wasn't an insignificant cultivation amount. Zhuo Mo was full of motivation. He was frightened by the triple amount of cultivation. He dreamed about all 3 of his powers progressing together, stepping on all of his enemies. Zhuo Mo felt his body heat up and wanted to start cultivating immediately. However, he didn't get swept up in the moment and kept some of his intelligence. Cultivation was a long-term effort and there was an enormous treasure hoard waiting for him. For Zhuo Mo, being satisfied was a very simple yet difficult task. He decided to explore the Sun Shin Temple. Sitting cross-legged on the ground, he entered the state of cultivation and only stood up again when he had recovered to his best state. Facing the rock wall, the 3 powers in his body merged into Shin power. His head rang, as though there was a cord plucked right next to his ear. That strange space shield returned to his body. The rock wall that had been blank suddenly became filled with strange characters that were like earthworms. Zhuo Mo didn't recognize any of them. But that was all right. He reached out an arm and his palm placed on the rock wall. The golden earthworm characters on the rock wall suddenly lit up. The black and dense rock wall became clear, and Zhuo Mo unhesitatingly stepped in. As Zhuo Mo passed through the transparent rock wall, the rock wall resumed its previous appearance. Passing through the rock wall, Zhuo Mo was frightened by the scene in front of him. He was situated in a stone corridor. The corridor was very large and about 6 to 7 zhang wide. The height was even more astonishing, about 20 zhang tall. Exquisite carvings could be seen on the stone walls on both sides. Even after tens of thousands of years, there were still many carvings that were undamaged. Among the carvings, the most commonly seen were depictions of the sun. These sun carvings released warm light and illuminated the corridor as though it was under direct sunlight. The enormous stone slabs showed weathering in many places due to the passage of time. But what attracted Zhuo Mo's attention was that there were armored soldiers standing along the 2 sides of the corridor. These armored soldiers wore heavy armor as they stood with their battle axes. Not far away were many pieces of damaged armor and there were some bones next to the armor. These soldiers must have been the guards for the Sun Shin Temple. The warriors that were standing guard would have been in this position before they were dead. Zhuo Mo did not worry about these people. After tens of thousands years, they were completely dead. As expected, when Zhuo Mo passed by these armored soldiers, they were motionless. He looked painfully at the damaged armor that was scattered on the floor. He didn't know what the armor was made from. A portion of them had weathered after thousands of years but they were mostly preserved. These were not ordinary objects. However, Zhuo Mo remembered what Big Brother Qing Lin told him and did not touch the armored warriors. The corridor was silent and without a sound. Even though Zhuo Mo was daring, he was unconfident and regretted that he had not brought people with him. A ruckus suddenly came from behind him. Zhuo Mo jumped in fright and hurriedly turned around. He found that a rock slab from the wall had fallen down, smashed to the ground and caused a cloud of dust to rise. After this false alarm, Zhuo Mo hurriedly gathered his mind and forced himself to depart for the inner parts of the Shin Temple. His present position was in the Greenwood Secret Realm, but Qing Lin had passed away so there was no one controlling the Greenwood Secret Realm. It had stopped its activity but that did not mean that this was safe for him. Every tile, every carving in this place could be a trap. Zhuo kept the map that Qing Lin gave him and readied his mind. It was packed with all kinds of warnings and caused Zhuo's scalp to tingle. There were many large and small secret realms in the Shin Temple. If he accidentally became trapped in one of them, he could be lost for his entire lifetime and then die as the Shin Temple was destroyed. Zhuo became as alert as he could. The corridors were like a maze. If he didn't have a map, Zhuo would not have it so easily. Zhuo stopped moving. In front of him was a lake. The endless water was as smooth as glass and it was possible to faintly discern mountain peaks in the distance. There were bubbles of various sizes floating on top of the lake among the ethereal mist. These bubbles of various colors changed in the sunlight and were beautiful. Zhuo inhaled sharply, his face serious. This was the Bloody Water Secret Realm. It was a very dangerous secret realm. The guardian of the Bloody Water Secret Realm was a female called Tuesday. She had once been a princess of the Benthic Water Tribe. However, that had been far distant in the past and she had lost her sanity, only to become a monster that only knew to kill. These seemingly beautiful air bubbles were all dangerous. Each bubble was a water secret realm. If one ended up in it, they would be unable to escape. Tuesday. Qing Lin's imprint also told Zhuo honestly that even he was not a match for Tuesday. Even though everyone's Shin power was gradually disappearing, but Tu was still very powerful. There was definitely no chance if he fought her. Reviewing and remembering every warning that Big Brother Qing Lin gave him, he made sure he did not miss anything before stepping forward. Stepping on the lake surface, every step caused ripples to spread outwards. A light wind suddenly formed on the lake surface. The colored bubbles flowed with the wind and floated towards Zhuo. Seeing the air bubbles increase and come closer, Zhuo's body became even more nervous. At this moment, a warm flow suddenly came from his body. The sun crystal seed suddenly flew out of his body, floated above his head, and gave off a warm golden light like a sun. This layer of sunlight was like a golden shield that covered Zhuo. The 5 colored bubbles seemed extremely afraid of the golden light and instantly ran far away. Zhuo finally released a breath. Qing Lin told him that the sun crystal seed in his body was the crux to being able to enter the Shin Temple. With the protection of the sun crystal seed, Zhuo safely passed through the Bloody Water Secret Realm. He did not encounter Tuesday. Tu probably had felt the presence of the sun crystal seed and avoided him. They had lost their minds but the Jinji inside their bodies were still present, so they innately feared the presence of the sun. The sun crystal seed was a true sun, even though it had not fully formed, it still had the purest sun presence. Qing Lin had also used the entire power of the Shin Temple to open a bit of the sun crystal seed's seal. Chapter 498, Golden Crows Sacrifice. The red eyes of the golden crows were like 2 burning balls of fire. Their inky black wings had crisscrossing golden scripts that appeared blinding and grand. They stood high up on the rock pillars and looked down at the people, their fire-red eyes filled with the indifference and disdain like that of deities. They seemed to have just woken up from a deep sleep as they lazily flapped their wings as though no one was around. The spectators had started to rumble. Golden crows, wondrous beasts from the ancient times, were alive right in front of them. In the ancient era, the golden crow was a beast that represented the sun. The flames it produced were as fiery as the sun and could dissolve the hardest metals. They were so strong that people feared them. But like the other famed beasts of the ancient era, they disappeared in the long river of time and disappeared from people's views. At this time, there were 10 golden crows appearing in front of them. The blow and shock that they gave the spectators was peerless. Even the Yuanying, Elder Shen, couldn't help but gape with his eyes tightly locked onto the 10 golden crows. Golden crow, there really are golden crows. Elder Shen murmured. Li Shu was so shocked that he was unable to speak. No matter how much importance the sect placed on him, he was just a 3rd-generation disciple. When had he ever seen such a spectacle? That's not right. Elder Shen's eyes suddenly narrowed and he recovered his calmness. These are not the true bodies of the golden crows. Hearing this, Li Shu instantly froze. Not the true bodies. Then what is it? It should be the souls of the golden crows. Elder Shin sighed emotionally. To be able to seal the souls of golden crows to guard the Shin temple, such skill is divine. Li Shu realized it. He carefully inspected the 10 golden crows. As he expected, he found that the borders of their bodies were slightly blurry, but from this distance it was hard to detect if one did not look closely. But do not underestimate the souls of golden crows. Their power is not any less than 7th grade Ling beasts. There is also 10 of them. If based on brute force, we are not enough even if we have 10 lives. Elder Shin gazed at the golden crows and said to himself. Elder, why are the beast soul guardians of the temple suddenly coming out? Li Shu asked, puzzled. Has someone moved? Provoked them? But they haven't attacked. As he spoke, Li Shu felt something was increasingly wrong and his expression changed dramatically. Elder Shin's face also changed. Lu Zhen was confused and did not understand. But looking at the faces of the 2 Darren, he also knew that something had gone wrong. At this time, the golden crows that had been perched on the golden pillars suddenly looked at the red sun in the sky. 10 red lines of fire sprouted from the open mouths of the 10 golden crows and wrapped around the red sun. The little sun exploded in brightness and burned fiercely. The air in the surroundings increased in temperature again. At the same time, the curtains of light between the 10 stone pillars of the Sun Shin Temple became bright and the curtains of light covered the entire Sun Shin Temple. Ha! I hadn't thought that we would trip up in such an easy place. Someone else has managed to trick us. Elder Shin's face was black as he gritted out, I want to see who has the guts to dare play tricks under this old man's eyes. Li Shu's expression was also terrible. The fact that the temple guardian souls had appeared but did not attack anyone meant that it wasn't caused by someone intruding on the defenses of the Shin temple. Then there was only one possibility left, someone was controlling the defenses of the Shin temple and activated the temple guardian souls. Didn't the Sun tribe die out? Li Shu refocused and asked. Sect leader's divination would not be incorrect. Both he and Elder Shin believed deeply in this. The change in this matter definitely had occurred in these last 2 days. What Li Shu voiced was what he was most puzzled by. The Sun tribe had died out long ago, the sect had been sure of this a long time ago. This was the result of having repeated divinations done. This was also why the sect had targeted the Sun Shin temple. The clanspeople of the Sun Shin tribe had died out and meant that the possibility of having something unexpected happen was not high. Normal people would not be accepted by temples like this. Yet what they had not expected was that an accident had occurred at the very place they felt the safest. Elder Shin was experienced and knowledgeable. He calmed down and said coldly, don't pay attention to that. We must enter the Shin temple immediately before the other completely grasps the Shin temple. This is the only chance. These beast spirits will not attack us, they are making a sacrificial ceremony. Li Shu froze. Making a sacrifice was a very unfamiliar term for any Shouja of the present. His eyes quickly did not show any more shock. Someone was sacrificing using 10 golden crow souls. He turned around his thinking, using 10 golden crow souls as a sacrifice, what did the other want to do? Elder Shin's expression was dark and showed slight urgency. Before the 2 people could react, his sleeve twirled around them and the 3 people disappeared. At the same time, several lights flashed across the sky at the same time, all flying towards the stone pillar. Evidently, Elder Shin was not the only one to think of this. The lights in the air flew at the curtain of light. Whoosh! Several Shouja did not have the time to wail before they exploded into balls of fire. Several dots of light appeared on the light curtain and then disappeared in the blink of the eye. Only when one flew near the curtain of light could they truly feel how high the temperature was. Those that were slightly lacking in cultivation would be swallowed by flames if they just came into contact with the curtain of light. Some others saw the situation and started attacking the stone pillars in hopes that they could avoid the curtain of light. Yet what they had not expected was that the stone pillars were extremely hard and were undamaged no matter how they attacked. But there were also people that charged into the curtain of light. Elder Shen took the two people along and turned to a stream of fire that easily passed through the curtain of light. There was a Xiuzha who wrapped his entire body in a layer of water and easily passed through the light. Some Xiuzha had swords protecting their body as they passed. All kinds of moves were used, but there was one common quality. All those that could pass through the curtain of light were experts. Some of them were of mysterious origins, but the great majority were experts that had been famous for a long time in Cloud Sijie. There were people constantly turning to dust. The heated hearts of the spectators cooled greatly. The greed at one moment could daze their minds, but no one would do something such as knowingly rush to their death. Those that charged at the curtain of light were all people that had absolute confidence in themselves. Among the crowd, exclamations occasionally occurred. "It's Chao Bei, he also came. Look, look. That is Hai Wuya." Expert after expert appearing caused the mood to reach a small climax. Since they knew they could not enter the Shin Temple, many people gave up and decided to peacefully watch. This place became the center of Cloud Sijie. More than half of the experts had come to attend this magnificent spectacle. The golden crows continued to shoot flames at the little sun. The fire of the little sun grew, and the heated waves were hard to tolerate. The spectators continuously retreated. Such presence caused everyone to pale. Some of the people that felt they had the abilities to enter couldn't help but hesitate. The presence of the Sun Shin Temple was great, just like the sun, blinding and unable to be looked at. It probably was not so easy to enter. Some that were more cautious even flew backwards far from the Shin Temple ruins. If they lost their lives because of watching this, it was not worth it. Zuo was also alarmed by the change in front of him. Truthfully, no matter if it was Qing Lin or the strange corpse, they were not too clear about the value of the Sun Crystal Seed to the Sun Tribe. The Sun Crystal Seed were forged by every totem warrior of the Sun Tribe and was the core inherited item of the Sun Tribe. Not just this 7-star Shin Temple, Zuo who possessed the Sun Crystal Seed could easily receive the recognition of even higher-ranked Sun Shin Temple. How could such an ignorant Zuo truly understand the profoundness in this? He dazedly looked with a puzzled face at the shocking change of the sacrificial altar. At this moment, something suddenly happened. A golden pillar that seemed tangible came from the sky and covered Zuo. Zuo felt as though he was soaking in a hot spring. His entire body was warm and comfortable. Where did this golden light come from? Zuo didn't know. He did not have time to think. At this time, his mind was in a very special state. The Sun Crystal Seed in his body was unusually active. Threads of golden light and red energy swam from all directions towards the Sun Crystal Seed. They smelled something familiar. If Zuo was clear-minded, he would find to his shock that this ray of light that was so solid it seemed tangible came from that little sun at the top of his head. The Sun Crystal Seed was like a key that opened this sealed storehouse. Elder Shen raised his head to look at the sky. His expression became even worse and his mood darker. The little sun above his head had reached a peak in brightness, and was not lacking compared to the true sun in the sky. The figures of the 10 golden crows were visibly fading. Elder Shen knew what was going on. Someone was manipulating the power of the Sun Shin Temple. No, more accurately, someone was absorbing the power of the Sun Shin Temple. If he was not seeing it with his own eyes, he definitely would not believe it. Only those who were descendants of the Sun Tribe could absorb the power of the Sun Shin Temples. No matter how certain he had been before that there were no survivors of the Sun Tribe, reality was in front of him. He had to accept that the sect leader had been wrong in his divination. Once this conclusion came out, he could not stop the murderousness he felt. The sect leader placed great importance on this ruin. He had found a clue by accident, and after effort on multiple fronts, they had gradually locked onto the position of the ruins. During this time, the sect leader and the other major personages of the sect had expended great effort to divine to finally get this result. This person who was able to escape so many divinations either had a great treasure or his power was astounding. If he waited for the other to finish absorbing the power of the Sun Shin Temple, it would be too late. Elder Shen took a deep breath. His gaze was serious. No matter what, he had to get the Sun Shin temple. Stay carefully behind me, Elder Shin said in a deep voice. Without another word, he strode forward. Li Shu's heart shook and tightly followed behind Elder Shin. Lu Zhen also did not dare to speak and hurriedly followed. In front of them were endless sand dunes. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.